What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Between Two Heads. My name is Jameson Welbourn. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the talented Addison DeMoura. And today we have Kyle Greenhalgh on. Kyle is the co-founder of Heritage Mendocino, as well as the owner of Bon Vivant Farms. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys having me here for sure.
Thanks for being here, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before we dive into Heritage Mendocino, Bon Vivant, and all the great work you're doing there, on this show, we always like to cut right to the chase and learn a little bit more about you and where you came from. I know from listening to other interviews you were on, you grew up in Utah. Can you talk a little bit about what childhood was like for you?
Yeah, I grew up in Utah. I was Utah born and raised in a Mormon family that wasn't like, super strict or anything. We just went to church on Sunday and were able to kind of just, that's what we did as being a Mormon family. I grew up in Utah. I've been a cultivator for 25 years now. I started when I was a little kid, about 15.
What were you like as a kid?
What's that?
Like kid, Kyle, before cannabis, you know, in class, in school, were you a focused and studied student?
No, I was far from it. I had severe ADD. I was really super hyperactive. I really liked to kind of do whatever I wanted there. So I was put in an all boys preparatory academy from 15 to 18, which is kind of like an all boys prison in a sense, but wasn't called that. So I spent 3 years there trying to kind of figure out who I was, and I was the same person who I was, and then begged my folks to get back out and to go back to normal high school and just have some sort of normal life that where some co-ed and, you know, just being a normal teenager. I lasted like 3 months, like maybe even 2 months, you know, and I was just, you know, sold everything I had and, you know, moved up to Alaska. So dropped out of high school, third term, senior year. Was just over it all. My mom was just begging me at that time. She's like, just drop out, dude. You're done, you know, like, you know, just go. So it kind of gave her a really good like feeling. And also she was super scared that I was taking off. And so do you want me to dive into that story?
Yeah. Like what before we dive into that incredible story,
yeah.
What was your relation? When did your relationship with cannabis start?
I first started smoking weed in, it was seventh grade. I was 12 years old, and I was at this theme park called Lagoon. We went and smoked. My friend Brandon came and brought this like pipe that you screw together and everything that's made out of those lamp parts and shit. It was awesome. And then we went out and we smoked this bowl, and then we went and rode the rides, and I spent $20 on churros that day. It was amazing. And then I kind of fell in love with it, and it was actually the only thing that would really calm me down and make me mellow. And because of my ADD, I mean, it was what my medicine was. And you know, at the time I was all hopped up on like Disoxin, which is Adderall now, and which is like straight meth at that time, which was pretty messed up to give someone like with ADD, I feel, you know. So begged my mom just let me smoke weed, but she just lost it. So that's kind of where I kind of came into it. And I really started finding a huge, big appreciation for cannabis then because it was a really big helper for me. So,
and at what age, Kyle, did you find snowboarding?
I was snowboarding since second grade. Like wow. First or second grade. My brother bought this old Avalanche snowboard you had to use ski boots with, and he sucked at it so bad. Like he was like the worst. And he's more like the book nerd type of guy, but he's super smart. So I got it from him, and I used to ride that with my mom's ski boots, like bigger than shit. Couldn't even fit my feet in there, and I'd ride it every day. And I started doing that, you know, since like, you know, right at second grade. And then got really, really, really good about like fourth grade. And then on from then, you know, I was at, you know, being able to snowboard, being in from Utah and the resorts being so close. And that was the time before global warming where we had like 6 feet of snow at the house too. And it was epic. So that's when I got into all that.
So what prompted the move out to Alaska? Like of all the places, you know, school's not really working out for you. You've got this affinity to cannabis.
Yeah.
Why Alaska?
Well, my one of my good friends, Matt, at the time in high school, he had these really cool parents that would let us kind of hang out there and let us smoke weed, and they were really the cool parents of the school. And he had a sister that lived in Alaska that would come back and share all these like stories about being up there and what they were doing up there, and I just thought it was the coolest shit ever. And so I made the go like I kind of was like throughout that little time that I was at my senior year, I kind of got this inkling that I wanted to go to Alaska. So I kind of got the opportunity and left.
And so when you're heading up to Alaska, you end up making it there. I think at first you get turned away at the Canadian border on your first try, and then you end up making it there on your second try.
Yeah.
What happened once you got up there?
Well, once I got up there, so the long story short is when we got denied at the border of Canada, they pulled out all these grow lights out of this bus, and they're like, "You're not driving through fucking Canada to go to Alaska. You guys are just coming to Canada, so we're not going to let you in." So then on the way back, we were going to the ferry. My grandma passed away, so my mom flew me back to Utah. And then right before I flew back to Alaska, I got a phone call from that group of people and said that they couldn't make it or whatever. So then I just went ahead and went up anyway. And yeah, that was like the rest was history from there. You know, hopped off the plane, put my thumb out, asked which way it was to go Girdwood, and was picked right up by a guy that was going right to Girdwood. That was the lead powder guide and the two-gas powder guide and like the helicopter guide up there. Had all like the riders snowboard from Ride Snowboards, like Terje, everybody, like the sickest shit I've ever seen in this thing, you know, like just amazing. And we're driving down the coast all the way down to Girdwood, and there's these big, huge icebergs that are just covered with dirt. And it was just, you know, it was dark, pitch black. But, you know, I really could see there was something magical. And then, yeah, I showed up to that hotel, asked for a job, and ended up getting a fucking house. So it's pretty epic.
So you ended up getting up to Alaska. You had no money.
None, like 120 bucks.
You had 120 bucks. You had all your earthly possessions that were going up to Alaska had been stolen.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah. And so what was your plan then? Like what was your
goal?
I
didn't really have one. I was just kind of like, you know, my plan was to not go back to Utah and not have to go back to high school, you know? And so I got up there, and once I knew that you get up there, you can go stay at the hostel if you want. And you go to the hotel and you ask for a job and you go fill out your paperwork. Well, I met this guy that was working the front counter when I asked for my application. And he's like, "Do you need a place to stay tonight?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, dude, that'd be helpful." He's like, "Well, it's in Anchorage. Let's just head over there tonight and I'll bring you back in the morning. You can figure out your job thing." So on our way, we stopped by this guy's house because it was his friend. And right when we pulled up, he was like just seriously throwing like duffel bags like out the door. It was like, "I'm out of here. Fucking fishing's way better in Maine. I'm leaving. See you later. Hey, Carlos, you want my house?" Carlos like, "I have like 3 kids, you know, wife. I live in Anchorage. No, I can't fit in this little cabin." And he points right over at me. He's like, "What about you?" And I'm well, I'm broke, bro. I don't have anything. And he's like, "Well, it's the third of freaking January. You can head out. Sorry, it's the 3rd of December. Yeah, January. And he's like, "You got all month to pay for it." He's, "I'll figure it out," and like tossed me the keys, and then got into his car and just like, you know, gave Carlos a hug, said, "See you later," got in his cars and it drove off. And I'm like standing there. Carlos looks at me. He's like, "You're the luckiest motherfucker I've ever met in my life." You know, and then like, and I'm still standing on the front, like not even in the house at all, like just standing out there, and he drives away. And so mind you, I'm like a little 17-year-old kid, you know, like, you know, not like just never been really on his own like this. And so I go into the house, open the door. There's a beautiful futon on the side. And like I go to open the fridge, and it had just been packed with like the biggest box of Costco hot dogs, you know, the big old bag of falafel, big old bag of freaking pancake mix. And I ate that shit for like 4 months straight. I mean, that was like, I lived off that, you know, it was a super big blessing.
So what were you doing then as you were getting set up? Like you've got your house, you're in Alaska. Like what's your first move?
Well, my first move was to try to get the job at the resort. And then I had to find someone to pass a P test in order to be able to work at the resort. So found this guy, drove all the way to Anchorage, put in my P test, like my fake P or whatever, and then got the results back. And at that time, like, you know, it's kind of funny is that it tested positive for cocaine. And I had like 17 years old. I'd never done that in my life. I was just like, you know, I'd much rather if I can test positive for weed versus the cocaine. But, you know, long story short, it gave me the job over at the bake shop, which is like all of our snowboarder friends work there. You know, we were able to ride at the resort still because it was kind of affiliated with it.
But
we
didn't
ate
get
every
the job.
day. What's that?
You didn't get the job at the hotel.
Nope, I did not get the job at the hotel. So I got the job at the bake shop, and the bake shop was really dope. So it was way better. So
Awesome. So what happened from there? Like, what progressed from the big shop?
Well, I started kind of hanging out with this crew of people that were, kind of like the weed growers around in town. I started buying weed from them and selling eighths on the doorstep of the Mercantile, and it's kind of getting to know people around through that. And then I started dating their roommate at the time. And then I started helping them with their grow that was underneath the basement. It was like in the 7-foot crawl space underneath their house, 15 lights, all set up with bubble buckets. I mean, they had it like kitted out. And so I started helping them a little bit. And then like one night I could smell the smell in the wall. Like it smelled like shit was burning. And I just kept kind of going over to it, but I couldn't really like figure out what was going on. And then we woke up, went to work. And then finally we get a phone call. And it's Eric. He's like, the house is fucking on fire. I'm going to the hospital with the dogs. Like, you guys need to get down here. So me and Amy like freaked out, and we were like hopped in the bus and drove down to the house. I couldn't even drive this bus. Like the stick shift was just something that buses do. I couldn't figure it out. So just grinding gears the whole way, pull down, and the house is just completely engulfed. So he goes to the hospital for smoke inhalation, and she goes to the hospital with her dogs. And then the fire department asked me, like, who can vouch for this house? And I'm like, I'll vouch for this house. So I vowed for the house and stuck around while they got the fire out. So they did the inspection after the fire was out. And I'm like, okay, good. They still haven't looked underneath the crawl space. And then next thing you know, I see the guy go pull up a board and then go pull up the other board. And I'm like, oh shit, it's over. And right at that point, like, just, he's like, calls the chief over. They look in the basement. He sticks his head down there. He looks right up at me. He's like, you have fucking 2.5 hours to get all this shit out of here. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm living in Greenhalgh, Alaska. This is what it's all about. He's like, the highway patrol will be here in 2 hours. He's like, get this shit out of here. They took off, and then I just started loading the fucking bus. Drove it down, grinding gears like 5 or 6 times down to the house, saved the flower room, put it up into my little, I don't know, it's like maybe a 10 by 10 bedroom. Just jammed it in there enough to get it to live for a couple of days. And they ended up showing back at my place at night, and they're like, just bawling. They're like, we lost our house. We're going to jail. This is going to be horrible. And I'm like, here, come look at this. Come look at here in the back room. Like, we don't want to see any weed, bro. We don't care. Like, whatever. And I'm like, no, come look at this. And so I opened the door, and he's like, holy shit, this is our shit. Like, how the hell did you get this out of the house? And I'm like, the fire department, like, told me to get the shit out of there. And, so what did I do? And they got it out. And long story short, Amy's a longtime local there. And her mom was murdered by her brother, when they were really young. And so there's like a whole town story, born local. And so saving those guys out of that thing, also actually, so you knew, like, the fire department knew as well. And so that was a huge, big, that was my shoe into cannabis right there.
So once you did that, you were welcomed into the community and
fully.
Yeah.
In every bar, every place, like you name it, like I didn't have to do shit. Like it was pretty nice. So started dating a 35-year-old lady there that was freshly divorced with all the snowmobiles, like 18 years old, huge big house. I mean, I was living the dream, dude. It was pretty epic.
So. That's incredible. That's what it's about when you look out for your friends. So what happened next? How long did you stay up in Alaska?
I was there for about 2.5 years, and then I moved back to Utah, and I shipped all my grow gear back out to Utah. Was growing weed up there in the hills in a house up there for, I don't know, from 2000 to 2005. And I worked my way up to like a 6-light room and was just killing it, selling pounds for $6,400 in big Tupperwares with long spears, growing Mazzari Sharif and all like the really dank strains like DJ Short's Blueberry, like Atomic Northern Lights back then, like really, really, really good herb. You don't even find that shit anymore anywhere.
Yeah, you actually mentioned on another podcast you did that when you were in Alaska, just before we move on from that topic, you saw your first 38-day strain.
Yep.
What was that?
It was called the Hill Kill, and they would it was bred out there in Homer, and it was kind of this little Russian kind of community that was back out there. It's like this 20-mile road is what I think it was called. And this strain would finish out like fully heavy indica, really heavy indica. I think it was like what they were running all back in BC back in the day, and like when Mark Emery was up on top and everything. It was 38 days. It was done, and it was dank. It was dank.
Was it a ruderalis or something?
It wasn't a ruderalis. It was like this straight, this full like lime green indica that would knock your socks off.
Oh, I wish we had that.
Yeah. I wish we had a lot of those strains, like the Matanuska Thunderfuck.
Yeah.
There was God, dude, there's just so many really good strains, dude.
As somebody who saw the MTS or the Matanuska Thunderfuck, is that gone? That's not available
Well,
anymore?
the whole story was, which I was able to go see it, is the Alaska Thunderfuck, which is different than the Matanuska Thunderfuck. The Alaska Thunderfuck was, they actually had it in these old kind of mine shafts and whatever that they were running up over there. It caught fire and burnt down. So the seeds that they got from the Alaska Thunderfuck was moved over to this guy Matanuska. So then they started growing it in Matanuska. It's called Matanuska Thunderfuck. So it's kind of like an offshoot of what the real, true Alaska Thunderfuck is.
True. So what Mazar Al Sharif, what were some of the other cultivars that you were growing 2000, 2005 in Utah?
Well, I kept that Mazar. I grew that Mazar Al Sharif all the way into when I moved to California. So I grew that one for 6 years. And I grew that, it was, what was that thing? That was the Northern Lights #5 for another 3 years up there. I just kind of put them on strain. Grew this thing called Hard Hat, Sensi Star, Headband at the time. You know, those were all just really pretty heavy hitters. The Goo, Half Gooey, murdered Half Gooey for years.
That's a hash dumper.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wish it was still around. So.
Oh yeah. I've heard stories that it's like up in Arcata and shit. Like somebody was telling me.
I got some cuts of it 2 years ago that weren't it. So.
It grew really vigorous too. That shit would dump fucking hash.
Yeah, like, all of those.
My boys would run at DHO.
Yeah.
I've never seen it solventless, but I bet it would be fucking amazing.
I bet it'd be really good. We grew some old, like the New York City diesel. They were just like the fat spears that I still haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't seen any New York for years.
Yeah.
2000 to 2005 Utah. I don't imagine that you're like very out and open in the cannabis community.
Oh no, far from it. There was no cannabis community, and like even my friends didn't even come over to my house ever. You know, and so I was lucky enough that the person I was living with, he's a beer brewer. So he worked at the breweries. He would like brew beer all the time. I grew the weed. He brewed the beer. Our fridge was just full of kegs and like glasses and then like fucking weed. It was pretty dope. So we were able to have a pretty good time up there. You know, no one else was growing herb up there. And so we were able to, you know, like seriously, it was like $6,400 a pound. I sold my quarter pounds just straight up $400 an ounce. And like usually the people I sold them to were like the dealers anyway. So like I sold those to the people that were hustling the pounds. And through that time, I started doing some driving back in the day. From like when I was back in Alaska, I started driving like 2000 to 2005, a lot of beasters and shit. I was packing a lot of heat back in those days.
So during this time from Alaska to Utah, like how prevalent is snowboarding in your life? Like, is it something that it's mandatory?
It was good. I mean, it wasn't as prevalent as when I was younger, because then I started getting to the rave scene. I started getting to the rave scene really, really, really heavily, throwing all the parties, doing all that stuff, and was completely nocturnal for like 3 years.
The Utah rave scene.
Oh, dude, it was the biggest. We had the biggest rave scene in all of the United States, besides Miami, like for years. It's huge. So. And then it was just because everybody's Mormon there. And so if you're Mormon, like, and there's nothing else to do, you know, you find like what's underground. And so, yeah, we had a big scene there for a long time.
That was like pre-EDM.
Pre-EDM. Before even that fucking thing it was still fucking techno. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I played drum and bass, and I was a drum and bass artist for a lot of years. So I still love it. It's my favorite. So it keeps me young.
Did you know Nick, like Rackham's, from the scene prior to cannabis?
No, I didn't, but I did know his girlfriend, Mercedes. Yeah, I've known her for quite some time. We used to play records down in Santa Cruz together.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So you're setting up the raves and attending and involved in the rave scene in Utah. Then you've got this, you know, small 5 lighter going on, and you're killing it. Which, like, what prompted the move to Cali? Like, was it a desire to get bigger, or were you getting pushed out? And there was
that, and then safety too as well. Yeah. You know, I felt like if I went down in Utah, it'd be fucking brutal. I would still be in jail right now. Yeah, you know, probably. Sure. Yeah. So yeah, moving out to California and kind of getting bigger scale. I needed to change of pace too as well, because I was gonna fucking kill myself if I stayed in Utah. I was partying really fucking hard. And I was like completely nocturnal and just super unhealthy. A lot of my friends were like, bro, you need to get the fuck out of here. And yeah, I was raging. So those 2 times I actually cleaned up. I moved to California to get cleaned up, which people usually don't. So yeah, it was kind of the complete opposite.
So you said you were partying a bunch. So, which obviously I know I have a bunch of friends that were in Utah during that period of time.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty heavy, like MDMA, lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the K-hole, all those crazy fucking things were going on at that time.
Yeah. I mean, I never really liked K. Ketamine was the one drug that did me. I like to do drugs, not the drugs to do me, So
Yeah.
it was I stayed away from that one. I knew the ones to stay away from, but then got heavily in everything else. So.
Ketamine's like a drug hug for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. You turn into Mouch mode, the man on couch.
Drug hug.
Yeah.
So. Drug hug, and you're like hovering above yourself and doing.
Yeah.
That's why you
thinking about all the shit you're gonna quit, you're gonna do, and then you get done. You're like, I'm not doing that shit. Hell no. So
you got to mix it with other drugs so you have a remote control and you can kind of go in different directions. Otherwise, I mean, wait a second. Don't do anything we're saying right now.
Yeah, don't do that.
This is past history.
If you haven't done that, then don't do that. So
don't do that. But when we were stupid and young, that was the kind of shit, that we did and that we thought. And I just when you were talking about that era in Utah, it just reminded me of everything that I knew that was kind of going on in Utah. So that's crazy that you were like right smack dab in the middle of all that.
I probably was the ringleader too. So
is the Amish community, specifically like the adolescents, consuming cannabis, or not really because it's too?
No, the Amish. You mean Mormon?
Sorry, Mormon.
Yeah, Mormon. Yeah. I mean, Mormons. I mean, there's a lot of smokers up there. There's a ski resort town. A lot of people puff. Park City's really fucking pretty heavy with that.
No, but I mean, in specifically in the Mormon culture, like, would they rather be doing hard drugs like MDMA and going to raves because like you can kind of like?
Well, no, I think it's just there. I think everybody would just rather kind of not go to church and be with this bland, family that doesn't have any culture. And so a lot of people, like, if you're like really inbred with this white culture, you don't have any flavoring in your fucking food. It's just, white culture. A lot of these kids starve just like I did for other culture. Like why I moved to Oakland is that I wanted to be the minority. And when I moved to Oakland, like I was right there for 8 years, right on High Street in San Leandro, like right in the thick of it, running 4 warehouses. I mean, it was like the Melrose place for pot growers. It was the shit. It was like everybody grew there. You could like walk over to your neighbors and borrow a cup of PH up. Like, hey, bro, can I get some PH up? And it was great.
It was practically legal, to be honest with you, because you'd be
it was at that point. Like if the cops came over, if you were robbed, like they didn't care. They didn't really bother you or anything like that.
Was this after 215?
Yeah, that was after 215. I was there from 2007 to 2014.
Okay.
And then I moved up to full time up to Mendocino. So I was bouncing from Oakland to Lake County, back and forth, and I was going like every other day for quite a few years until I went to jail. And then I got popped in 2012.
What's your setups look like?
Indoor at the place there, we had.
Tell us the whole story about what happened with getting popped.
Okay, so
please.
Yeah, if you want to hear the story, so this is So I used to bounce back and forth I had this place down in Lower Lake. We used to call ourselves the Morgan Valley Mafia because we were out in Morgan Valley. All of us grew there, a bunch of our homies out there. And I'd bounce like every other day. I would go water the farm up at the ranch, up in Lake County, go to Harbin Hot Springs, go back in the morning, and then water the rest of the plants and then drive to Oakland. Then I'd take care of Oakland, wake up that morning, drive up to Lake County. And I did that for like 3 years solid. Like seriously, put 200 miles on my truck within like no time at all. We never in Lake County, we always never trimmed up there. We always shipped everything back down to Oakland, to the warehouses, because it was just a lot easier to work with during the wintertime. And then this one year we decided that we were going to trim up at the ranch, and we're like, screw this is a lot of weed, we're not trucking this down the hill. And oh wow, I'm like reliving this fucking nightmare. It's fucking crazy. So any which way, I go back down. It's harvest time. We're putting stuff in, like everything's hanging up. It's done. It's beginning of November. I take off down to Oakland with my girl to go check on some shit or whatever. And I leave the kids up there. Trimmers are starting to come back up. And then I get a phone call from some of the trimmers, and like, hey, Zeb, this is the guy that's working for me. It's like, hey, Zeb's acting really fucking weird. We think he's fallen off the wagon because I cleaned him up off of heroin. He had like been super sober for like 6 months, like doing proper. And then finally I paid him this big old fat paycheck and he's able to go get his teeth fixed. And so he goes to the dentist. They write him a prescription for painkillers, right? Because his teeth hurt. So he goes back to the farm and just completely falls off the wagon, you know, like, and he's one that could carry a gun around and he was super gun responsible. So he always had a gun on his hip, you know, just what you needed to do at that time. So then, so I get that phone call and so I go back up there, and once I get up there, he's all knotted out and just foaming at the mouth and just really just fucked up. So I'm like, bro, you need to go into the trailer, get some rest. I'm going to go to the backfield, get these kids bucking down this weed and putting it in the bins. I'll be back up here in a minute. Do not leave. I'm like, do not fucking leave this ranch. I was like, if you leave this ranch, we are done. I'll pay you more, but we are done as friends. You are not able to drive. So I get up from running at the back, and he's at the front gate, just like nodded out in his truck in the front seat. And I'm like, oh, fuck, he's trying to drive away. So me knowing he's got a gun on him and everything, I'm like kind of slow putting my hands into the car so I can get the keys. And then, and so as soon as I reached in there and turned the car off, he felt the truck shake and then woke right up and like looked right at me. It's like, hey bro, sorry, I'm just moving my car. I'm like, dude, you cannot leave. I was like, I've called your wife. She's going to come get you. And he freaks out. He's like, what? You fucking have called my wife? Because he didn't want her to see him like that. So then he fucking just guns it, fucking smashes through the gate, fucking flying down the road. And so I run back. I'm hauling ass down the hill. I go get the four-wheeler. I'm flying up to go meet him. And then as soon as I show up to see him, he's like, his wife pulls right up. And he gets like, opens the door and just falls straight onto his back. Just like, boom, you know, gets up, flips me off, flips her off, gets back in the truck and drives off. And I'm like, oh shit, dude, like this is not good. So he ends up rolling the truck on his way out, fucking somewhere down the road. They found the gun. They went back to his house. They fucking found he's been stealing weed from me. And then so then they found a lumber receipt in his car, which I don't think he did. I think he narked on me. So then they showed up at my place, fucking fully busted everybody, pulled everything out, fucked up my whole ranch, cut up everything. It was just really kind of a big mess. We had just barely passed them or something when I was going to go get gas that day. And so then I get this phone call from the ranch guy that's next door. He's like, dude, the cops are going to your place. And so I sent Lindsay back, and I'm like, I'm going to stay back. I'm going to deal with all the lawyers. I'm going to deal with I have all of our books for our 215 stuff. So I'm calling lawyers and everything down there at this bar. And I'm calling back up. And I'm like, you know, I got a hold of Lindsay for a while. This is my girl at the time. And then I couldn't get a hold of her. And then I got a hold of this guy, and I kind of had a fishing suspect that it was a cop. And I'm like asking him all these personal questions. And the guy answered every single one of them. It's like what's your favorite beer? What's your favorite thing to smoke out of? Blah, blah, blah. He answered every single one of them. And then, so I was like, okay, cool. But he kept asking me where I was at. And then, I finally was like, dude, when you grab my truck, when they let you leave, just come and pick me up. I'll hop right out on the road and you'll come see me. So as soon as I get a hold of him again, he's like, okay, we're leaving. All of a sudden I see my truck coming down the road. So then I go running out. And next thing you know, like I am swarmed by like 40 cops, like no shit. The whole shebang, SWAT, everybody like get on the ground. And like cops got out of my truck. And I was like, what the fuck you guys doing in my truck? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, why are you guys in my vehicle, you know, right now? And I'm like, and they're like, you Kyle Greenhalgh? I'm like, yeah, I'm Kyle Greenhalgh. And they're like, well, do you own the property? I'm like, yeah, I own that property. And it's like, but you have no right to ask me, and you can't tell me that I live there. And they're like, get in the fucking car. And like just smashed me on the ground. They're like, no way, we're not even hearing this shit. Took me. So when I showed up to jail, that friend that I thought that I was asking was in jail already. Like, I don't know how this guy knew. I don't know what happened, but so I knew it wasn't my friend that was turning me in. So long story short,
he like cold guessed the dude's favorite beer. He guessed it. Bro.
Like, I have no idea. Maybe saw like a bottle sitting there, like luckily, but then this friend's like, his favorite thing was to smoke out of a hookah, and there was no hookah at the ranch. You know, so it was like it was super fishy. So. Long story short, that was nuts. Hey, I'm going to grab a hoodie real quick because I'm freezing. My house is freezing. I'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure.
What I want to ask is, like, couldn't the friend have, like, given the information and then they took him over to jail and then they went and got Kyle and then they bring Kyle to jail and his friend's already there?
Yeah, straight up. I mean, that's weird. They'd be like, what is your favorite way to smoke
There's
weed?
no way you could get the hookah. Hey, Kyle, my question's this.
Thank you, guys. I'm sitting over here shivering right now. Woo!
So my question is this. Do you think it was possible that that your friend actually answered the questions and then the police took him to jail?
No, because I was watching that road the whole time. There was only one way in and one way out.
Okay.
And so I watched every car that went by.
And you asked him if they if they're taking your friend in and they just ask him nonchalantly, like, hey, by the way, what is your favorite way to smoke? Like, he might give that up because it's like, that's not.
Maybe they could have done that, like, kind of nonchalantly while they were in the car or something like that. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like, hey, man, this weed stuff's not that big a deal. You know, I have an uncle who does it anyway. How do you like? I don't know. That's fucking wild. Yeah,
exactly. Man. I can see how the cops are super tricky like that, for sure.
Wild.
So so I ended up doing 6 months in Lake County.
Yeah.
After that, it was like almost a 2-year case. So I did time over there in 2014, and then got out, and then just went straight fucking completely legal. You know, like, shut down my warehouses, moved up to Mendo, sold my ranch up there, which was kind of a bummer because it was totally paid off, and 72 acres in Lake County. I could have probably sold it to all those guys that were trying to come in and blow it up for a couple mil and been done. Yep. And then I wouldn't be doing the shit I'm doing now. So,
well, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, no, it does, big time. You know, and I wouldn't be anywhere else, bro, right, other than right here, right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very blessed with the team that I have. Yeah. You know, with everything. I mean, it hasn't been easy, but boy, fuck, it's worth it, bro. It's really worth it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. Like, man, it's so cool to hear this story. So, you know, I don't want to skip ahead. I want, you know, you get out of jail, and you shut down the everything, and then your mindset is, I'm going to move up to Mendo.
Yeah,
I'm going to do everything completely legal.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't completely legal because I got a place up, you know, that was down right when I got there. I moved the 20 lighter up there. I was completely broke, mind you, at this point. I'd gone through everything. Like, I lost a relationship that I've been in for 5 years. But right before I went to jail, I met Coral, my wife now. And so she was able to go do her thing for a while, and then came back right before I was in jail, right before I was out of jail, and be able to take care of this farm I was doing up there. I had a 20 lighter, and I had this other 50 plant garden that was right below the ranch where I have now. And I was like, then I was running that shit from jail. You know what I mean? I was, got it set up and then went to jail. And then, we went and we grinded to do that. I sold my place in Lake County, then bought my big ranch up in here in Willits. And we were able to get, the only way I was going to be able to get on, do what we wanted to do was to get on some paper, right? So I was still on probation. My girl got us the license. And this is right when Mendocino went back to the tag time. And I was super nervous, dude. Like, so her name was on everything. I was the renter. I was like the landlord. Like, it was just, that's how I fucking did it. And long story short, we did really well for a while. And then we're able to expand some more. And then I got the opportunity to take over a dispensary that was up here called Cure. So I spent, whatever money I had made up between that point, like 40 grand or something like that, to rebuild this dispensary because I was promised 50%. So I dumped everything that I had at that time into that. In the meantime, my girl calls me up, just nonchalant me. She's like, dude, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay. And I just bought like a skid steer, all this other shit. So I returned the skid steer right off the bat. And then, then finished opening up the dispensary. And then it was like 6 months before Prop 64 was going into effect in 2018. Mm-hmm. And then, so we went recreational. And the day that we went recreational, we saw triple the door swings. I mean, we were seeing like $1,200 days at that point in the first, because that's, that's all right in Mendo, to like $5,000 to $6,000 days. And it was just overnight. And so we were doing really well. And but it only took maybe about 45 days until the owner saw what was going on, and we were making some money, and I just built this place beautiful, and I rebuilt it just gorgeous. and started taking everything back. Started taking all the deposits. Started doing all this other shit. Started losing all my vendor relationships. Doing all this stuff that was just really brutal. To where it kind of like we made this trip to go down to LA, and all this kid could talk about was money. Like he just like talked about the money, all those people you can make money off of. And I just started getting sick of it. And I was just like, dude, I'm so sick of this relationship right now. And I'll chime in more about that thought pattern anyway a little bit later. But where it started making it feel really unspecial. And so just like I said with the race team when I left, it was unspecial, and I just kind of wanted to move on. And so I really was like, okay, cool. I got the gist that he didn't want me there anyway, so I used it kind of as a kind of escape route to get out. So I used that to get out. Got all my money back. He gave me, roughly about $50K back. Took everything that I put in there out of it. If it wasn't attached to the walls, I fucking took it. And then I made him start back up over again. So then at the same time too, as well, I had my eyes on this building. And it's right before my son was born. My son was born on March 26th. So I saw this building, and I begged the guy, the owner of the building, for rent for like 2 months, dude. I drove around 15 grand in my fucking car, because the day that he told me I could have it, I was like, bro, I got 15 grand in my car right now. At the moment you give me the renting, I will drop it off for you, and I'll pay like a year's rent, And so finally he says yes, like right 2 days after my son's birthday. He was born. Walked up, gave him that money, and then it was started building Heritage right then.
Fuck yeah.
So did you have the vision for it from the beginning? Like was Heritage?
Not all the way. Yeah, I had the vision of what Heritage would be, and I had the vision of building a place, but not a hashery. I knew that we were going to be making hash there, but that was more involved of like really, because all it became part of was like the architecture, like all like getting the cannabis license was the easy part. It was like getting like the building permits, getting everything to go through city approval, like all that shit. It was a nightmare. Title 24, everything that you have to do. I retrofitted a 1940s building, and so if I would have built a new building, it'd have been fine. But this building was built in 1940, and everything I did made it stronger. So then, therefore, it had to be re-engineered. And so
you also put a hash processing facility as well as a retail store.
Yeah,
same civic address. Like, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot for any municipality. So I can only imagine.
Well, they were stoked on it, So when I was building the place, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put the hash room over here, and I was like, well, what am I doing putting a wall right here so you can't see it? And I was like, okay, like we're putting in a window right here. You're gonna be able to see all this stuff. What we're gonna be a hashery. And so it started kicking into my, as I was building this place, like it was starting to be coming into like the processes. And then as I'm getting supplies and running to the dump, there's this place in town, like this John Foster Trucking. And he's the kind of guy that like retrofits Connexes, retrofits all this like weird shit. You bring like stash metal to him, this is the type of guy. And I drove by his place, and I saw that tank that we have right now, the one that we retrofitted. Saw that over there, and I was like, and I've been making hash since fucking, since the beginning of time, I swear to God, 98. So, I mean, right then and there is when we started using bubble bags. It was like early 2000. So I saw the machine, and I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is actually super perfect for this. It's like if I raise it up off the ground, if I do this. So I asked him if I could buy it. And he's like, well, you can buy it, but it might be stolen. And so I'll get, I'll let you know here in a month or two. And I'm like, well, how much do you want for it? He's like, $1,200. And I'm like, $1,200? Okay, good. I will, so months and months went by where I was like, hey, have you talked to the sheriff yet? I want to get the machine. And then, so finally, like, it was the last day I was building this big wall, and I had to put this door in. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to go over and ask him one last time. And I go over there, and I'm like, hey, bro, I'll give you $1,700 for that machine right there. $1,700. And he's like, oh, man, I really wish I could. Let me call the sheriff real quick. He's like, but I don't think he's going to release it. And then sure enough, as soon as I finished that wall and finished that door, I put my nail gun down, got a phone call. And he's like, hey, bro, you can come pick up the machine. And I was like, dropped everything, and just ran over, grabbed that machine. And like, I remember making a post about it when I first got it in the trailer. And people were just like, what the fuck, dude?
For the people who haven't had the absolute pleasure of visiting Heritage Mendocino, your shop in Ukiah, can you describe the machine, the vessel that you're talking about?
So for sure, it's a top driven propeller, but the propeller goes in from the side and at an angle. So it's got two different types of angles on it. It was a machine that was built in 1986 for stirring curd, for doing high pressure curd, doing thick material. And the motor that it had on it when we picked it up was like water cooled. I mean, it was definitely an old, like 1986, like a freaking, like a 454 up in a thing, So I have a good friend that's named Jason. He's a bioengineer, and he does like a lot of the bottling lines and a lot of other like brewery stuff too as well. He got me in touch with like the people to retrofit the new motors. We saw that thing and we retrofitted the whole new motor. We got new hydrofoils built for it, and just kind of specified everything that was going on from there. I had a 2-inch port in the bottom. I welded a 4-inch port in the bottom, just knowing like one day I was unfortunately using the restroom. And I was like, you know what, dude, if I can get that down that hole, then I probably can get some material down that 4-inch hole. So then we welded a big old freaking, 4-inch port on the bottom. So now like there's no climbing into the machine. There's no nothing. That last load, when you're spinning on that third run, you just flush it out the bottom through the bags and kind of catch out and rinse as the time going as it's spinning slowly. And you just spray it out. It works better than what we really thought, So I was like 15 grand into the machine before we even turned it on. Maybe before we even knew it was going to work. And the moment that we like kicked it on, we were like, holy cow. It works better than anything. So nice. We're actually going into business building those purposely built right now. So we're going to actually get taking that same model and that same concept.
That's so cool.
But doing it the right proper way.
Awesome. Fuck yeah.
So,
yeah. So you're getting into the equipment manufacturing.
We are. That's my pivot. So
Congrats.
I've been a cultivator for 25 years. As y'all have said before, I'm stopping right now. I'm going to stop for a while. Just like Brian that you guys have talked to before, the Briantist.
Yeah.
He told me one time, just because I've been having a really hard time, he's like, bro, just because you're not growing, doesn't mean you're not growing. He's like, if you're going to be growing, you're going to growing your business. So like the last year and a half of like opening Heritage, trying to run my farm, trying to do everything and having a new baby, blah, 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 blah. I really came to focus that like my team at Heritage needs me like hyper focused at Heritage. And I've built something that's special and I need to make sure that I follow through with that next vision that I had that's bigger than just cultivating cannabis. I'm not saying that cultivating cannabis isn't a huge thing because, it massively is, but it's not. I can use this now as to support our industry, to support our teams and the farmers behind me, and if I use this the correct way, then I can step back on cultivating cannabis and hopefully help other farms too along the way. So that's my decision on my pivot right now. I'm really making like a big move just to really kind of support my wife while she's being pregnant, not drinking, not doing anything. It's a really big shift for me right now in my life to where, if I'm going to make this roll, I've got to make some big steps. So I've taken an opportunity now is that I'm going to, I'm not growing cannabis, but I am harvesting some other people's fucking farm that's down there in Sebastopol. So we're going to be cataloging all this fresh frozen there, making these, beautiful catalog of what's going on there and hopefully start getting into the fresh frozen game. So a little bit more.
You've done some really cool stuff with the shop. Like not only have you been able to bring a really like focused retail experience towards solventless hash consumption, but also worked with a lot of farmers in very, very unique ways. Can you talk a little bit about, how you worked with those farmers and the economic conditions that kind of forced those relationships to come about?
Yeah, I mean, we work with our farmers the best we possibly can. I mean, it's a lot of the product that we get is a lot from me. It's from my farm Bon Vivant, but we've had as our recent success and everything. John from Huckleberry working with the White Thorn Rose and a few other farms that we've been working with. We have the rare opportunity to work with something that's very unique. That's actually helped our team really build some rapport, and that not even though they already didn't have it, but really. It really put us on the map working with John. So we try to do these things like where we do splits and we do farm splits, and then we kind of do a rev share thing that we've been doing with our farmers. But I'll tell you what, the last 3 months until just after July 5th, everybody was at a freeze. You know what I mean? So we were there. So here we are doing mass production, like producing like a motherfucker. And then, no one's buying bulk. You know what I mean? Everybody's at a freeze because they don't want to pay cultivation tax, but you know, all sorts of stuff. And, you know, and then the economy's kind of slipping. So then right after July 5th, boom, like finally things are just starting to fly. You know, it was like next thing you know, like it was actually business is starting to pick really good back up again. So super positive, but last 3 months were brutal.
Yeah, it's ebb and flow.
Yeah.
What kind of like trends are you seeing in the solventless market in Cali? Right?
Well, I'm seeing that it's trendy. You know, I'm seeing that it's really now getting into the trend. I'm seeing really now that people are at the race to the bottom. But that's the point of, and that's the beautiful part about hash, is that like people that have been in the hash game know what fucking good hash is. And a lot of people, if they're going to go to the store to buy hash, they're going to go buy good hash. You know, and so you have a lot of these other companies that are coming out that are reintroducing terpenes, not in a good way either. You know, they're hitting the market at $15 wholesale. I mean, they're really, it's a lot of people that are shifting from like the solventless world to, I mean, the solvent world to the solventless. And then, but all those guys now are being like, fuck, we can't scale this shit. And to be able to scale this, you have to have someone that's a real big artist behind it to be able to put really good product. You're not just blasting socks and seeing what the outcome's coming out. You have to rinse it well. You have to store it well. You have to like be a pro at like the post processing. You have to like on all those things. Like if you're right, you have an artist that fucking takes care of each one of those sectors. You know, I've got Belle that takes care of like the washing and the making of the hash and does that stuff, which is, to her technique is just amazing to watch. And then you have Brian that he's the post process manager, and he's just, you know, he loves to tinker, and he just is always in there just tinkering and doing a really good job, but he knows what he's doing. And, you know, for the forefront of like, we care more about quality than than just really what's going on out there. But we also produce for a lot of companies rosin. A lot of companies that you see out there is probably our rosin in it. So.
And you do, so you're mainly doing the grow and the procurement and then managing the operations overhead of everybody that's there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a serious micromanager that I'm trying to not be a micromanager. It works really well at my farm. I can micromanage like a boss, but doing that type of thing over at Heritage doesn't work. You need to really let those guys go. And, you know, and then you're also dealing with artists. They're very particular with what their needs are, and they need to be met. And it's, you know, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So
you mentioned that you guys were getting, I'm just curious, you're getting into fresh frozen stuff.
Yeah.
Is that going to be, because we have pipeline. So is that going to be like lining up farmers that you know, because you said you weren't going to grow anymore?
Well, just lining up farmers, no, but also just building a catalog that's data driven. You know, since we can actually do that, everything will have test washes. Everything will have. We also have a new thing that's going to be coming out. I will talk about this probably this next week after this kind of ordeal is a little bit more done. But we have a special way of actually storing the product that's coming out. It's actually with like a pod, like a Connex, like a shipping pod that runs itself for 3 days on a fuel cell. You can drop it anywhere, and like I'll explain all about it, the partnership that we've got going on there. But cools down to negative 80 degrees if you want to go to negative 80, but you know, you don't have to. But just certain things that we're really trying to, number one, create the shipping way of doing this a lot better, doing the results a lot better, and like also helping out the farmers and with true data and true samples and true yield reports. So people that are going into buying this stuff, that they actually have that behind it. But then also at the same time too, I can take that back and be like, we can toll process that for you too. So
that's awesome.
You know, it's kind of like the whole niche of everything. So
you'll be able to line them up with the material and process the stuff.
Yep.
Awesome. And you guys can white label on top of that, which is great.
Exactly. So I'm taking this job and I'm getting paid in fresh frozen for this job because nobody's got really cash right now. So I'm doing this job for a lot of fresh frozen that's going to come back and go into Heritage. So then that whole thing is going to be a big influx of investment, so we can really kick off our second round. You know,
that unit, is that unit connected to? You said it was a partnership. Is it connected to the fresh frozen sales company, or what's the?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's what they want to get into for sure. But that it's not just used for cannabis; it's actually for produce all over the world. It's actually being done. So like if you get shipped, you know, produce and you don't have the right power, because the majority of those things don't have the right power, you can get that truck dropped there and it'll run itself for 3 days. And then so it's for the whole big conglomerate, but we're hyper focusing right now on the fresh frozen with cannabis right now.
Nice.
And hopefully we can start using that to ship hash other places. We can ship hash over to freaking Italy, you name it. So like when it's that's go time, it'd be really badass to be able to start using those type of things to really, get out and branch out into this world.
What are your thoughts on resin blending and mixing? Like, are you guys doing a lot of that in the lab, or do you guys tend to try and stay within the culture?
Well, there's goods and bads. Some can be good. Some strains that can be like a beautiful white color, but then just super monotone terpene. You know what I mean? Don't really have much behind it, but they got the color and the appeal about it. So you have to really look at it as two factors. You got your business side, and then you also got like what people and the customers also want too as well. They want pretty color, want sort of certain things. So some things you can find it's like super loud that might not have the best color, maybe a little bit darker. It's got some flavor to it, phenomenal flavor. Mixing those two things together, it helps out, and you can do that type of nature in a blend. But we've really tried to stick away from doing blends. Also too, as well as we've learned the hard way. Number one is because we want the strains to like represent themselves. But number two, when you mix two farms together, say it's two different type of farms, and then you fail on one load, and so that batch fails for some sort of like pesticide or whatever that came through. You have no one to blame but the extractors, because we're the ones that mix that material from two different farms, so that you don't know who did what. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to track down the source, which we were able to. But we'll never do that again. Like, we don't mix any other farmer's stuff with any other farmers ever again.
I mean, you could introduce an SOP where you test the stuff before you run it.
You could. I mean, yeah, most of the parts you usually do, but I mean, most of the farms, like, and especially that farm, like, they're pretty dang regenerative. You know what I mean? And so it's this early organic pyganics, they'll pop, and I'll let you guys know right now, like those pyganics and all that shit in the early phase when you get into extraction. Those things, it's so minute, it's ridiculous, because any other state, it would be fine. But in California,
what did it pop for?
It was like a synthetic pyrethrum. So it's whatever I just said before that.
Well, pyrethrum is like a crushed chrysanthemum flower, so it's like an all natural. It's an all natural pesticide.
Pyrethrums are but they're banned in the California market. Yeah. So I mean, in Oregon, you can use them all day.
I heard they got banned because people were using pyrethrum bombs indoors.
Yeah.
And what would happen is they'd blast off the bombs, and then they'd soak the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then later on, when the rooms would sweat, the ceilings would drop the pyrethrum onto even later harvests after they were not doing that shit anymore. Yeah. So because of that, they banned them outright because of how they can get into like porous areas and then release themselves afterward and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird stuff. I think, but like in a greenhouse, it's fucking totally safe. Like, you'd never have an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, when you're testing per billion or whatever, or parts per billion or whatever, I mean, it's ridiculous. So
it's a little too much. I mean, I've heard that there's more radiation in the potatoes that you eat than what's allowed in Massachusetts to be in the cannabis that you consume.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, what the fuck? It's overregulation. But I think a lot of that stuff's settling out, and hopefully it gets kind of figured out. But
I mean, it's not going to happen quickly. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the stuff where we're embedded in right now with this industry, it's, we got a lot of good relief off with the cultivation tax. I mean, that helps out a lot. You're not going to see the price back up onto flower. It's not going to be trickled back into the flower bulk sales, but you'll see it back again if you work with with concentrate artists or with extractors and stuff, because mind you, now they're able actually to take your stuff for a little bit more money, but actually like those guys have a margin too. Like we're finally actually seeing like that cultivation tax was all of our margin. After I've like looked at the book for the whole years, like everything that we were making after distribution, after all the cultivation tax, you name it, that $150 a pound, that was a margin, And so when you're spending $10,000 on rosin, but you're spending $3,000 of that on fucking on cultivation tax, like, what are you left at?
Wasn't the cultivation tax like $24 or something, or $40-something per wet pound?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So what she go out to be around $150 a pound dry. So.
Oh, a dry pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dry pounds were 150. Now they're 161, but now they're nothing. So yeah. So I think that the most thing that I really that really irks me about the taxes is the biggest part that really I wouldn't have a problem paying an excise tax. I mean, I think it could be a lot lower, but my biggest problem with that is that that money is being taken outside of our community.
Yeah, where's
none of that money is staying in our communities. None of those places, like all of our customers that are in there spending their dang good money, it's not going back to our schools. It's not going back to our roads. It's not going back to like anything to help our community. It's being ripped out over this big, huge state of California that thinks that they have no clue to how to, run every system that's going on out there. So I guarantee you, as much as you have majority of 3/4 of the state that doesn't allow dispensaries, if you told them that they could keep 75% of that money, the state was like, hey, guess what? We're going to give your city 75% of this excise tax. Every one of those cities would be like, we're in. And every single one of those places would actually start allowing dispensaries and stuff. Why? Because they were getting money from the state, not from their community. The state was reimbursing that back into their communities. You'd see schools fly over. You'd see freaking roads be better. You would see everything be way better. But in result, we have $100 billion of excess taxes in California. That's
but
all of our community's money. So
you're talking about politics, and politics doesn't have the same math that everything else has.
No,
it's a totally different fucking math. I read a thing the other day that said, of all the money that in weapons that went to the Ukraine, 30% of the weapons got to the Ukrainians. The rest of it goes in fucking bribe and this and that and stolen. So it's political math is way different because of greed and because of all this other shit. It's so sad, but I mean, the way I look at it is, as long as they're not spending the money they're making on enforcement, then high fucking five. And they're not. They're using metrics.
They are spending it though. That's what they're doing up in Northern California. The money that they're making, and they've already said it before, is to enforce the black market. And I mean, and right now, I mean, Southern Oregon's getting hit like a mother right now. I mean, Southern Oregon's not a pretty site to be in. They got heavily funded, and I mean, all licensing things, was going over into the black market. There's just, serving people abatement notices, giving all people right now, you can buy a property up here in Mendocino for a pretty cheap penny, and a lot of them, before but last year you couldn't find one. It was, people were buying everything they could.
And do you think that was the last stand of holding out hope, and now it's a mass exodus like it's everybody's saying? Or what are your thoughts on?
I think the fucking big key players are sticking around. I mean, I think if you got balls and if you're used to this shit, you've been doing it for a long time. You've lost before, you've been robbed before, you've been done before. You know how to handle this stuff. It's hard, but that's also too as well as if you're able to make over 6 figures of a year, say what if you make $120,000 a year? That's good money, right? It's pretty decent. You can make a living. You could kind of, you raise your family off of that type of nature. A lot of people don't really realize that you could still make it a living that way. If you're not making $500,000 a year and then be able to take your winter off. No, you have to freaking work all year now. You have to keep everything really tight. You have to watch all your budget. You couldn't just go freaking to the grocery store and spend, $40,000 and fucking call it good. If you watch everything, you reuse everything, you do everything, and then you'll be able to make it. You know what I mean? But I mean, this isn't like a short game at all right now. This is definitely a long game. But if you haven't built a brand, or if you're not working with a brand, or if you're not working to make sure that you've established a good pipeline between other brands, then I'm sorry, dude. I mean, as much as it is, if you spent the last 3 or fucking 4 years up on the hill doing fucking nothing, thinking you're just going to grow weed, and you just were waiting for that open arms of bulk sales, it's going to be hard. But if you've been cultivating relationships, building other people's brands, mind you, or building your own brand, or investing into even just good infrastructure to where your business really helps run itself as a cultivation place. A lot of the people that are succeeding up here now, they're broke, but they're still working, and it's moving and it's fluid. They invested into infrastructure. They bought nice greenhouses that were easy. They bought nice dry rooms. They bought everything that you're supposed to do before you fucking get the chicken coop. You know, before you get the chickens, you get the chicken coop. And it's what a lot of those people in Lake County, they didn't do. You know, they're planting all this acreage, and where the fuck do they dry it all? Now, one of them was like, okay, cool, we're going to put up a big dry shed, and we're going to put this in here first, and then we're going to see how much weed we can probably fit in here. We're going to plant that much.
Yeah.
No, it was a shit show, you know. Sours got hit really hard this last year, so they couldn't grow this year. Like a lot of those places, there's a lot of places that aren't cultivating this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
you think it was because of greed, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, because of greed. Because I mean, everybody thinks. I mean, if you get stars in your eyes, I mean, I got stars in my eyes. You know, like you want to grow a lot of weed, you want to be able to do it. You think you're going to be able to come up, but a lot of people have bigger stars. You know, they want to be able to create the biomass for that own company, and at the end result, all that biomass is coming from a lot of us, like me. You know, I was providing for Blue River, you know, Guild, like a ton of people, for Joe from Gold Drop for years. You know, I grew for hash. You know, I took the tops for flower, I sold the rest for hash, and I cultivated all of those collabs very well. And I started pushing Bon Vivant pretty hard, but then, you know, when I built Heritage, I knew it was something that was more relatable. It was something more relatable than what Bon Vivant was. It kind of brought our kind of culture in. I had been talking with Frenchie for multiple years before that in the documentaries and everything that he was filming, and created a really good relationship with Frenchie. And, you know, like the people that were doing the documentary up there were able to tell, you know, a beautiful story. Yeah. And I think that you know, it's really scary for our culture right now. You know what I mean? But I mean, I'm told every day, you know, just to stay positive and whatever, but you really, don't get stuck up on the hill. You got to get out there and you got to work, you know, you got to go see some people. And really, it's, you know, it's not just the cannabis industry that's struggling at all right now. You know, there could be, which there probably is, like a quarter of the people cultivating weed right now, but the quarter of the spending is being spent because no one has money in this, you know, in this economy right now. Everybody walks into a dispensary right now and goes, I have $18. What can I get for $18? You know, and that's like down the whole entire pipeline of every single retail that's all over California right now. But
you know what that is, though?
What's that?
I see that as an opportunity for a guy like yourself, because you sell water hash, and you can sell a 450 milligram, 560, 600 milligram product for 1 gram at a much lower price, because you can, you know, what I love about Heritage is that you guys were the first company that I saw that was like, hey, we take everything and we run it to water hash, and then we micron, you know, we organize it by micron. We know exactly who we have. And then we press to order. Like the fact that you can do that, you have those microns. Yeah. You know, you can, like, BC Bubble Man's a perfect example. I'm talking to Marcus. I see what he's doing. Next thing I know, he's like, oh, there's this little tiny weird pipe that you can put hash into, and you can smoke it. And it's like this, and it allows you to smoke a relatively inexpensive, not such high quality hash. Yeah. And then he's the guy that produces the hash. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, so now that person that walks in with $18, that whole $18 is coming as an opportunity, because you can create a product at price point that can come out at $4 and sell at retail for that price. You know, after packaging.
We are launching like our lower line right about now. We're kind of moving into that shape or form.
It's a good time for it.
You know, yeah, for sure. And it also works for for BOGOs too as well. I mean, the market right now, like, you can't really BOGO hash. And I mean, a lot of these people now, when you're working on splits or margins or anything like that, you really can't afford to buy one, get one, or anything like that.
If it's a lower
a little
tier,
bit more. What's that?
If what you're getting, if you buy one and then you get a lower tier, another brand that you create, that's a price point brand. Yeah. It's like, hey, if you buy one of our Heritage grams, you can get a gram from our, you know, whatever the company name is. You get one of those, and that makes it so you can do that BOGO, which is kind of a dope idea.
For sure.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I think that being able to be, you know, conform in and create new unique products, like, you know, Marcus is on the forefront up here in Canada of it's not going to work to just deliver the form factor that the traditional market consumers have been consuming, because it's going to take many years to convert those individuals over, whether one of us does a great job at it or not. You could do the best job in the world, you're not going to convert everyone any faster than going to happen.
Well, how that does, and that's the cool part is that Heritage does that all the time. Like, you see like the 60-year-old, 65-year-old lady and man come walking in, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And you're like, "Well, it's hash." And like, "Well, what do you do?" And then you tell them what this is: ice and water and a little bit of heat, and or this is what it is. And oh, well, what do you mean, like the old traditional hash? Like, yeah, we have that too, but this is the new wave. Then they go smell it, and then they go smell like the white thorn rose, and then they're like, "Oh my god." And so we sell the first grams to a lot of 60-year-old people that they've never bought in their life, and then they become recurring customers. We hear that there is another hashery that has been opened. It's up there in Oregon. I don't know if you guys have heard about that or not. So we might be starting a trend. We are the world's first public hashery, but
I hope so.
I hope so too. Dude. I really feel that just like rosin's been around for not too long at all, and it's all kind of evolving, like how we're figuring out how to put it in the vape cartridges right now, how Colin from Vessel Life's really like isolating a lot of like fucking doing a phenomenal job on that level. There's a lot of like things that are just barely starting to come to fruition, that just like adding heat, or adding something that's just, here you have this plant that's grown, it's awesome, and it's stinky as shit, stickier than hell, and you freeze it, then you smash it around with a bunch of water and ice and everything like that. Then you pass it through these screens, and all of a sudden you're looking at this like awesome, like just to die for, like just powder, right? You're like, oh my god, this is really cool. Smell it, smells great. And then you put a little bit of heat to it, and it just goos like phenomenal, even crazier rosin, which is like, this is nothing being applied other than, no solvents, no nothing. And then here you are with this product from this plant that's like changing your mind state with like other inputs of just using it to, filter it out. Mind blowing.
It's a cool thing. Like I was wondering if we could take it back to the conversation about Mendocino and what's happened up there economically.
Yeah.
There's something that I've always noticed about that region, and you've been up there for a long time, so you can probably speak to it. What I've noticed is a lot of people will cry poor, but it's because they're living outside of their means.
Yeah.
And if they made adjustments, they'd be fine. And then I even see like recreational people that are crying poor, but they're not talking about the duffel bags going out the back and the money getting made. And they're really using the rec thing to just launder the fuck out of a bunch of money. And it's like, I'm cool with that story, but it's not honest.
Yeah.
And it's not truthful. And like, and then that region is just sort of like a big laundromat.
I think the struggle is truthful. I also don't knock a man's hustle. Number one. And then I really feel that, I mean, we are a community that's been, it's also why we're named Heritage, but we are a community that's been embedded in this since the 1960s. It has built 90% of our economy in Northern California for everybody, whether you fix a diesel, whether you're a lawyer, whether you sell like anything at the freaking parts store. Everybody is hurting up here. I mean, if you're not backdooring, like no one has to come to Mendo anymore to buy weed.
But like, anytime a geographical area that's that far from a metropolis loses a revenue stream, it's going to have that issue. The place that you're talking about, it was doing more in fucking lumber than it was doing in cannabis before that, and it was shifts.
But then also, Mendocino was one of like the most, and Humboldt was probably one of the richest counties in all of California for a long freaking time. Mm-hmm. So everybody was able to, like the old timers now that have gone out of the game, they've been able to buy their houses, to sell it, to whatever. And it's the people now, it's like, you don't have people coming to town. And then if you don't have people that are going out and networking, then you're broke, right now. A lot of people are sitting on their same bird, but like, no one has money up here in Mendo and Humboldt. It's sad, but it's general everywhere. But I mean, it's, from every single type of industry part up here, it's crushed. So
it's consolidated for sure.
There's a way to bring it back here, which is sustainable. Like you need to make, Willits like a freaking, you need to make Willits resort town. And by resort town, I mean, you need to like, what do we have the most? It's got 2 wheels that goes anywhere, and it's mountain biking. And I don't know why in the hell these people don't get it through their heads of like building this mountain biking metropolis up there in Willits that would be going through the redwoods, that you could bike all the way down to the coast, that you could really, start shifting something that's sustainable, making a place that, you know, all those old timers are going to die up there, you know, as much as like their kids left their ranches. Now they're all hanging on, and I drive right through every one of them, and all of them are 85 fucking years old, about ready to pass out. And all those are going to have to do something. And it's not the kids that are sticking around. The weed industry's gone. So what are we going to do next? You know, and reality is you've got to do something that's good for the community, and putting a mountain biking resort up in those areas right now and being able to still do weed and whatever, you know, people care about terroir. I mean, it grows good cannabis, you know.
And tourism. I mean, like Huckleberry Hill Farms is like, I'd bring my mother there. You know what I mean? Like, I've never.
I think everybody would bring their mother there.
Like,
you know,
I've never. It's incredible. So I mean, I think that having more like that and exposing people to that side of the industry, you know, is really important. So I definitely agree with you, and I think that's a really, you know, I think that's the only path forward
for sure. It's a lot of the people. I think I've been a big proponent on always putting your money where you eat, and that's like in our community. And a lot of people up here haven't like opened up other stores. They haven't really cared to like have their wife do what their passion is, and like, you know, maybe open up a boutique or do something else. It's like a restaurant or something. It's been individualized. You're able to hang out on your ranch and be able to live. Yeah, you're fine. You're like, you know, creating your own little ecosystem up there, but it doesn't contribute to what our community's doing. Like before we opened up Heritage, my wife, she had her own store, and she, you know, did like boutique stuff, made beautiful leather bags because she's an amazing artist. But as our kids came along, you know, we have finally had to leave as well. But, you know, no one puts their money here, you know, and I don't think they're going to really do that. I think everything up from Santa Rosa up's really hitting. So besides Hillsburg's popping right now. I don't know what it is over there.
Interesting. Do you have any plans to bring more glass into the Heritage shop? I feel like that's the one thing that
we do. I would love to. I'd like to actually be. My friend Jeff, he owns Nectar Collector, so we had Nectar Collectors there for quite some time. That's just what he did. He's done that for forever. He's one of my best brothers. But yeah, I mean, it's also like my price point right now, bro. I'm, you know, like if I had enough money to really get rigs in there and to do type of nature, or, you know, maybe getting other people that could really display things in there and help working and maybe network a little bit more. But, you know, we're growing as fast as we can right now. For sure. And yes, we would love it more than anything. Richard, that's one of our in-house technicians for hash. He blows glass. So we have a lot of 3-pipe holes and three-hole pipes and everything for our temple balls and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And then we have, you know, a couple things like that. But other than that, you know, we haven't been like super hyper glass focused. So, yeah, we kind of have a couple other people that are partnering shops that are down the road that shop at our place that I almost rather have the business and stay open than me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair too.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to, you know, be selling puff coats and do all this other stuff. We're really like this close to getting on-site consumption. And once we have a big, huge lot in the back that's about a half acre of property, and we're going to be putting in like 10 gazebos in the back there. But we're going to start having this thing called the Hash Bash, and it's going to be every 2 months. And the Hash Bash is that we're going to be putting up these, you know, kind of like a bracket and how you're fighting. It's going to be 150 people invite. So then you have, you know, it's a 2-day little event or whatnot. But we're going to do that every month between like the recreational, legal brands that we fit into there, and just kind of have a bash out for the whole entire year. Those brands will also vote on themselves or the other brand too as well. You're sitting around the same table as those colleagues. So we're bringing like a lot more farmers markets, a lot more concerts, and those type of things that are really trying to bring back that kind of community, which in that times we'll have like other glass artists doing their type of things there too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But, and that's the killer for me there, is that I haven't been able to do that activation. I haven't been able to use that side of that business. And, you know, really in a big thing, it's like, that's why I built Heritage too, is to, you know, be able to have these awesome events that we could do. Yeah. So it's killing me actually. So
do you have a line of sight on that when you're going to,
they keep saying like 3 months, and I was just told 2 days ago, 2 months. So, and yeah, we're hoping, the mayor's all for it. Everybody's all for it. It just, everything in the Ukiah city limits, it's not fast. So everybody else can have on-site consumption. It's right on the outside of city limits, which isn't far at all. And I can't have it because I'm in city limits. So it's quite lame.
So, you know, a lot of people target the lack of retail access as the major issue in Cali right now. Do you agree with that sentiment as the?
I mean, yeah, I mean, fully, I see that. I mean, the retail access, like I was saying before, with the excise tax thing and being able to have those cities that don't have it, allowing that access to have it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I see it. But right now, no. It's like right now, it's the economy that's really making it crash right now. No one can afford cannabis. People want a budget product. A lot of other dispensaries that I've talked to around up here have shifted from like, you still have some high end things there, but majority of everything's all bargain driven. A lot of everything is, and it's definitely a lot of the companies now too. If they're holding on, they're like highly discounting items. They're highly doing like and BOGOs. They're highly doing everything. But you're seeing big companies fold left and right.
How's Heritage doing outside of there, like for your distribution, like your products down in LA?
Distribution's been really tough. We're looking for a new sales force right about now.
You just.
Oh, I think his phone connected to our car for a second. I didn't hear him talking.
It's connected to the car.
Oh, that's okay.
This is interesting.
We've never had this one happen before.
I think your phone is. Yeah, I think your phone is connected to someone's car's
We're good.
Bluetooth.
We're good.
You're what?
We're
your
good.
phone connected to someone's car's Bluetooth.
Oh yeah, probably my girl's phone. She's over there. My wife just pulled up.
Sorry, and I think when she pulled up, it connected.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Addie? There, I think it was a really good question.
Oh, I was asking about distro and how how your products are doing outside of there. And you were saying that you guys were putting together a sales team and going to approach that now.
Yeah, we're getting a sales team together up north. We've been doing really, really, really well, and then we're just hitting and like kind of relaunching SoCal right now too as well. So it's definitely been very difficult. A lot of distributors have fizzled down pretty hard and thinned out quite a bit, and we're just realizing that using a third party to get things from point A to point B, and then just using a sales team, it's just the way to go. And then us handling up.
Control your own sales. It's
yeah. Well, and then that way we're handling up north. So
yeah, if you guys are, it's always smartest to control your own sales because you produce the product and you know it best, and you need that information to really sell it best. So it's
for sure
it's strong. And you can outsource all the other shit.
Yeah, and that's why I'm actually pulling off of cultivating cannabis. Is that I need to really start hitting the streets and getting out there, and there's no one else is going to sell our product better than me. So,
have you guys thought about getting with one of these non-storefront sales groups and like being able to then take Heritage, take its face, take its attention that you draw from it, and create a website that then just any customer in California can just jump on that website, order your stuff, and you would use a third party for the last mile.
Yeah.
Stuff like that for non-store.
That sounds, that would be phenomenal. Like I know that 710's doing that, right? Pretty much it's like the consumer buy. Yeah. I mean, that would be phenomenal. We're just figuring out how to it's been a year and a half. We're really kind of just barely getting into everything about what we can do. First of all, it was just learning how to run a business when you're completely burned out from building a business. And so, that's our next maneuver. So.
Well, what did Elon Musk? He said that most drug dealers are better at business than the teacher or the university professors. They understand it so well because you're feeling it. I call it like keeping your balls in the electricity, and it's like, if your balls are sitting in the electricity, when something happens, you feel it. So you learn. All right, my balls are in the electricity. I need to make sure that I fucking handle all of my shit's in order. So no electrical currents are going to come my way and light me up. But they always come no matter what. You
always, no matter what.
Definitely. So you guys are going to be doing that distro stuff. It's what I'm hearing and what I'm putting together is that you got a lot going on. You're getting into the new stuff, a couple new businesses. You have your existing stuff. Of course, you have Heritage. But then if you're going to jump into the sales part, you can't do sales without promotion and marketing. So it means you know, it sounds like you guys have to really manage what you're doing very, very closely. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you're going to tip in one of these other directions. So it is go
for
time
sure.
for you guys. It sounds
Well,
like
I
it's
definitely I use like our marketing is coming through. Here comes my little kiddo.
like,
The marketing that we're using to be able to get ahead is that it's my hard labor. So marketing is going to get paid by this other entity that we're bringing in to do this fresh frozen thing. They're going to pay for just to get us get up and running, do a big promotional shootout of like the fresh frozen harvesting of our company, and really start getting like really what we haven't been able to afford really out front. So we know that very well. Like you haven't seen like big videos of our team. You haven't really seen big videos of our store yet. You haven't really seen any of that. And that's our next big push is like really being able to get people to tell our story and, you know, kind of go through that. And, you know, I think we were playing in oh shit mode for quite some time to where now I think we've downsized a little bit. We've kind of hyper focused and kind of stopped making so much hash that we, you know, we're just making hash that to where the team's getting out again. Bell's starting to teach more classes. I think a lot of this other promotion that's getting out there like we needed to is actually being able to get received too as well. So yeah, here coming in the next month you're going to see a lot of push for Heritage Hashco on marketing. So
that's awesome. And you said in the next few days you'll get to talk about that other group and the other stuff too.
For sure. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, they're a phenomenal group, and one of the other persons is my partner Benji too as well. I don't know if you guys know Benji at all. Benji's he's kind of been lining up all this Oradale. He's my brother from another mother, but he used to work for Guild Extracts and stuff for quite some time.
Is that group?
There.
What's that? I know Benji. Is that group that you're talking about? Are they? You said it was like a produce thing. Are they from outside cannabis, or are they from?
Yep. Yeah, they're from outside cannabis, from NASA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, from NASA, but they're also in cannabis. One of the guys is in cannabis too, but the technology is all from like NASA and all this other stuff that they've been trying to make. It's actually really neat. So it's actually really cool. I was kind of putting it off for a while because there's a lot of people that walk into your places talking about cool shit supposedly or whatever, and then really got like hyper involved over the last couple months. Like wow, this is freaking amazing, and this is like really what the world needs right now is to be able to ship things in places and also be able to like, you know, those things run on a lot of power. And when you're running on a fuel cell and you're running on, you know, like chillers and stuff, it's, you know, night and day, the amount of power that you're saving, you know? So,
well, when I hear NASA, I think expensive. So is it cost effective?
Probably pretty expensive.
Well, what I'm saying is like, if you're going to drop one of these, what's the cost?
It's also
of this
something
technology?
you can't buy. It's something that you can't buy. It's a service that's created from it.
Okay. So if you, what I'm trying to understand is, because you're like, you know, you're explaining it in a way where you're saying that this technology is coming from NASA. Yeah. And if that's the case, if I'm a farm and someone's like, hey, we're going to drop this unit there, I'd be like, NASA, like, how much is this going to cost? Is this going to be cost effective? Because everything right now,
well, it's going to be cost effective, but it's also going to make you money, and it's going to give you a pipeline to get that material out to as well.
Well, you know what's cost effective is
it's not something with
freezers, like.
Yeah, you don't have to buy it. The thing is that it's like a service. It's a service that gets dropped off. It's provided for you. It's like, and then we haul it away, ship it, sell it, take a percentage.
So what you're telling me is you're not going to talk about what the cost is.
No. The cost of the machine, I can't say it. I can't say it.
No, you're not explaining. You're not outlining what the cost is to lease the unit or have it dropped off or get the service.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm wondering is like, what does it cost? What would it cost if I was like, hey,
you gotta wait.
Well, it's like I got 7 farms and they're ready to go. Like, what does it cost? That's what I'm wondering. So I can't wait to hear that because that's the most interesting.
It's good. I'll let you know, and I'll pipeline you into this a little bit personally about it. But you know, I would say,
I've seen too that Matt and I think it's Cryotech is what it's called or something, like the one that Chris was involved in. Yeah. Chris from Clear, I guess Matt has one that's like a harvester. That's a new unit that uses like some other system, and they've been talking about that for a couple of years. It sounds like these two things would go very well together, but
I think so.
That's cool. Well, I can't wait to see this shit. I want to hear all about this. So when are you going to announce
it's actually really dope. It's really dope. So
will you announce it on your Instagram, or where are you going?
We'll release it on Heritage.
Okay.
And we'll be releasing a little bit more. I mean, I think there's also some hype being built too within marketing before it actually gets thrown out there too as well. So
I like
Yeah,
it.
I'm excited. I mean, it's a new endeavor for me. I'm kind of getting into the pick and shovels type of ordeal, into the service ordeal. And I'm trying to take a lot of like my knowledge of being able to run a cannabis business and run a micro business and do the extracting thing, and taking a lot of the lessons that I've learned and not learned and made the mistakes, to really approaching this to being able to help people in their success, And so being able to make sure that it's kind of cut and dry. I mean, a lot of us are just barely getting into like how the stuff really should be stored, how it should be really packaged, how it can be harvested fastly and not being murdered. There's a lot of like tech that's, that people, also that they look down upon, but also at the same time too, as well, as when it comes down to like harvesting a lot of like acres of weed. Sometimes you've got to be able to handle some certain things in certain ways. So
Yep.
I mean, your labor forces behind harvesting fresh frozen for solventless extraction is fucking brutal. It takes a lot of time. You can't. You have to be, and you have to shift a lot of people's mindset on how they harvest. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's
but I
a
think
big
if you
deal.
compare, if you compare the cost of harvesting for fresh frozen to the cost of harvesting for flower, and then you add the time and the duration of time, because we all know that time is very expensive.
Yeah.
When you add the two, fresh frozen and hash comes ahead all the time.
Yeah.
Hash,
for
like
sure.
the farmers can get paid more quickly because the fresh frozen is.
Do you want to know what the funny part about that is, though? Is that so? Here you are saying that, okay, you have better time, right? You can freeze it. It goes right from the plant into a bag, but then it's sold more for a higher ticket. You know what I mean, right? Then you have cured plant. You have cured material that's actually whole plant material that's been bucked, shucked, cured, spent way more time, way more resources, way more everything like that.
For less.
That sells for less.
Yeah.
And when there's been a lot more like terpenes that have been built upon, that has been a lot more terpenes that have actually came to fruition after a cured material. And if you get to material that's been cured quick as heck, get it in the freezer fast as hell as soon as it's dried, and it's big leaf properly, and you actually are washing like a cured product that's like, not leaf or anything like that.
You're saying dry
the
material
is undeniably undisputed. I don't know. A lot of the times, like, I like it a lot more. I don't know. Like, there's things
effective.
Well, that I mean, it's not cost effective, but more notes come out of those terpenes when they cure. There's the terpenes that are there, right? That are there that you're going to lose within the evaporation of all the cannabis, all that. But then there's the ones that gain themselves over age, and a lot of that stuff, like those OGs taste like shit fresh. You know what I mean? They're really phenomenal, but like you take an OG that's cured for fucking a month and you pull that bad boy out. Oh my God. Headbands, all the other really good stuff that like, okay, well, this smells like a baby diaper, but then if you like, that baby shit, that baby puke kind of smell, you kind of get popping off. Do that with that, like with cured plant material, and like those sours will taste even more sour. It kind of there's something that goes along within that timing process of that cured plant that, and it's, straight fact, it's fucking tradition. You know what I mean? It's like,
but what does that product
have to sell like that forever
compared to? But when that product sells at market, it's going to sell for more because it took more. And if the market right now is not buying the bigger product, it's not the direction to go in terms of production.
Yeah.
So it's like, it comes down to the point of like, hey, a Lamborghini's faster than a fucking Toyota, but it costs more money.
Yeah.
That's just, we'd all rather be in the Lamborghini, but it's like, if it's a race, you want to be in the Lamborghini, but so it gets down to like,
why don't we,
the cost,
Well, I mean, why don't we look at it this way, where we need to learn how to age the resin once it's separated from the gland, and then process it to achieve the same outcome as we would achieve if we were to hang that plant material, cure it, and then separate those glands from stalks.
Because but now you're talking about the reason why people went to fresh frozen in the first place.
Yeah.
Is because
I think that's a lot of the stuff. That's a lot of the stuff.
I disagree with Kyle. I respect everybody's opinion on this show, but like, I'm a fresh frozen boy for life.
Yeah.
So like you'd probably be, if you said Jameson 1 in 100 strains is better, like maybe Jesus Tech, they're like fully cured.
I wouldn't say every strain's better. I would
say
there's a big gamut.
You said the majority, whereas me personally, I'm going to say the opposite. And everybody's different. Everybody's their own unique snowflake, and that's what this show's all about. But like my personal experience is that the majority I'm going to take live, and then the minority I'm going to take cured, and everybody's different.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what is
Yeah, I
the
think
real?
that
What it really comes down to is what the market's looking for, and the
Yeah.
market right now is buying a shitload of fucking rosin compared to anything else. When it comes to that, if it's water hash, like 710 sells 5% of what they sell is water hash.
Yeah.
The rest of it is
that
fucking
grown
rosin.
or decreased over the last few years?
No,
it stayed the
bubble
same.
hash has dropped off. I mean, it's really hard to sell bubble hash, you know, and I mean, but full melt is really kind of, Papa and Barkley, they do a phenomenal job, but their shit's fucking retarded.
It's like
Their shit's
small
so good.
production though. It's not.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I've
so
heard that
good.
they're not doing. Yeah, their stuff is
Yeah.
fucking insane water. It's like
Yeah, no,
straight. You're like, oh, now it's rosin. Like you make the
Yeah.
rosin by whipping the fucking water hash. You're like,
yeah,
there we go. We're good.
pretty much. I can't remember what strain I just had from them. God, but it was some of the best bubble hash. I was like, dude, I'm glad that didn't go up against that Whitethorn Rose.
Their lemon royale.
Because lemon royale, that's what it was. I was like,
their lemon royale and that garlic
Yeah.
juice they have, like that.
Yeah.
Or is it? Oh no, it's a garlic cookies. They're straight garlic cookies and their lemon royale. I'll grab a fucking QP of that shit. That shit is so
any day.
good, dude.
Yeah,
So
I will
good.
trade one QP of GMO cookies for one lemon royale. So, Papa, if you're listening,
there you go.
They're like these wind tunnels that are used in soft gel cap production to cure out the wet soft gels. And we need to be looking into, because if the market changes, and I don't disagree with Kyle. Like, Kyle, I think you know your shit. Like, I think that a good OG resin cured out would probably make some way stronger hash, and maybe I just haven't been exposed to that. But if we can prove that out and the market's willing to pay for it, it doesn't change the fact that we need to figure out how to age this resin off the vine. And
correct
that same effect, because I believe, and Addison touched on this earlier, but I believe that you have trailblazed and now set a standard that's going to be copied globally eventually, where it's like, hey, we're going to process all this into loose resin. We're going to separate it out and we're going to see everything we have. And then we're not going to fucking do anything else until we know where we're going to sell it and who we're selling it to. Yeah. I think that nobody else has did that. And I think that that's going to be copied going forward. And I think that the next step is, okay, well, now we've got all these separated out inputs. And how can we, find unique ways to manipulate them?
For sure. Well, we're finding a lot of things, and that's what we're starting to play with now too. Is that Bell does a lot of the temple balls and stuff, and we're finding out some of them that'll grease up and stay greased, and then some that won't, and the reason why. And Brian came up with a lot of it too because he's been pressing. He's like, hey, but that looks like a lot of THCA that's in that product with no CBD. And then Nasha is like, hey, all the stuff that doesn't have very much CBD in it doesn't really, it'll make a temple ball, but it won't be greasy. And so Bell just did another kind of a testing with some GMO cookies, and sure enough, that has CBD in it, it stayed oily and greasy as a temple ball. And so there's a lot of factors within the cannabinoids of one, how it's going to be staying stable, but then also too at the same time of, do you take out that stuff? Do you use that freeze dryer? Then do you let it air dry for a day? What other factors can you start implementing now before, really getting in from the cured thing, other than putting it into a freezer oven and freezing it and then putting it in the freezer, So when you leave that little bit out on the countertop, and then you go back to it the next day, and it's kind of got that glossy look on it. It's got that little kind of that sheen or whatever, and it kind of looks like that microplane stuff. It's kind of done something in itself. It'll change a little bit, but there's still always that little shell that's not going to let everything get away, is what I would say. And so I'm just thinking maybe with pressing things or with handleability or other types of hash that might be available as a live product after maybe it's air dried for a day or two. Those are new products that haven't been really even dove into that much, so lots of fun shit to play with.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I always talk about the fact that the numbers guys that are brought in with the investors that are buying these businesses and getting this shit, as soon as they hear about water hash and how you can take a perishable product, which is a flour product, you can take flour and now you can halt the perishability by turning it into a water hash and sticking it in a freezer.
Yeah.
And you can slow that process down and get your wits together and now start breaking that product down and putting it out or selling it out in other ways. And when these guys figure this out, you see them light up. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Because, you know, they all know that, like, every one of those numbers guys, like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, the distro's not moving the flour fast enough and the flour's going bad. Now we're getting complaints from the dispensary that the flour doesn't taste right because it's sat for too long. So you can't slow the process down where they're like, oh, if we took 50% of that harvest and turned it into water hash, stored it, it slows time and it allows us to then figure out where to put it and where it can go. And now it's actually more sellable at that point. And when they see that, it makes such a fucking huge difference. And I think that's why water hash is like gaining so much popularity because, you know, it's like, dude, you could be a water hash, you could be you guys making what you make and doing what you do. And then as you expand and grow, you know, you're going to be like, dude, the BHO market's not going away. It's not going anywhere.
No, well,
it's distillate's not going to go anywhere.
And it's just
of course it's going to find its place.
Just because it's not huge in California, it doesn't mean it's freaking massive all over in Colorado and the East Coast.
Listen,
it's freaking huge.
The distillate numbers, if you look at the actual numbers in our state for when they say concentrate, they say dabbable and non-dabbable. Yeah. That distillate or vape market, it's still way more money than the rest of the market.
Yeah.
If you look at the actual fucking numbers, I love when people talk shit on it, but it's like, bro, distillate still sells. It's in everything. You just don't fucking know it. And that's why I made that meme. That's like, remember when people used to tell you that distillate was in things? Because it's still there, dude. It's just you just don't know it. Because if you look at the numbers, it's the larger part of the concentrate market. You know, the vape and the dabbable, the way it's split up. When you look at the vape market, a tiny percent of it, like a tiny percent is solventless. And then a bigger chunk of it is BHO. The biggest fucking chunk of it is distillate. Yeah. And it's still that way. It's not going to really change.
Brian kind of came up to a little bit of a factor, and I don't know if this is true or I don't know if this is other kind of ways that's being done, but he was kind of, you know, everybody's coming out with their solventless vape cartridges right now, and a lot of them are clearer than clear can be. And you're like working with hash. I know like there's like, it's so fluctuating. It's crazy. You know, it's you have these ones that are really clear, but they're also like their percentages are pretty on par every single time, every single batch. Mm-hmm. They get them 86%. They get them whatever. And then Brian's like, well, do you think they're distilling? Do you think they're distilling rosin? And then instead of using like a solvent to use from the rosin, now they're distilling that rosin.
That would be crazy.
Are we there?
Yeah, you're back.
All right, there we go. So are they distilling rosin?
Yeah.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know like what are people kind of moving into that factor now, like of taking rosin that might not be looking like the shit and then making that doo-doo butter into something that's nice by distilling it. Have you guys heard of anything at that?
There's no regulation. I mean, all that we have is the community to shame a product into failure. I mean, we saw a product called Full Melt come out in Canada, and it was a distillate and rosin blend.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no like they got no penalties. There's no fines. There's you know, there's nothing like that. It's just the community. You know, community backlash was all they suffered. So I think we have to watch out for that.
I think those theories are kind of the same as like the cops when they're putting fucking cocaine in the weed. It's like, dude, cocaine costs more money than weed, and you don't give drugs away for free. So you don't make steak. You don't take steak and make hot dogs out of it. Yeah. Right? Like, you're losing fucking money if you do that. So if you take...
Well, but I mean, what if you want to turn your hot dog into a steak?
You can't turn your hot dog into a steak.
You distill it.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like the input material.
That analysis doesn't work, Addy, because coke costs way more than weed, and distillate definitely doesn't cost more than rosin.
Yeah, but what he's saying. So wait, what he's saying though is that they're taking water hash, and they're distilling it. They're turning it into distillate, right?
Yeah.
You'd be taking fucking steak, which is water hash, and turning it into distillate, which is
but
carbon.
not all water hash is steak, my guy. Some of that stuff.
Oh, I
I've seen
understand that, but you're not going to get.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
dude,
not good.
Don't think that Scotty Ball hasn't been buying up a shitload of shitty water hash and turning into distillate for years. He has. They'll take trim, they'll take whatever, and they grind that shit down and make fucking distillate. So if it has, here's what it comes down to: if it has active compounds in it, it can be converted to distillate because all you're doing is isolating and stripping those compounds out.
So, but then you still calling it a solventless product then?
No, at that point it's distillate because you can't distill it without using what you use. You can't distill it without doing the process to make that final product. So it's still a distillate of it's distilled. It's like it's not. You can't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's what they're doing. I think what they're doing is they're using very inexpensive inputs and they're creating their stuff with rather inexpensive inputs. And that's that's it. I mean, I feel like Brian and you guys with what you have, your facility, your campus, all your stuff, no one's going to figure that out quicker than you guys. Like you guys are fucking all up in that lab all the time. You know, Brian's making yin yang signs and fucking, he's got all kinds of shit going on over there. So it's like, if anyone's going to figure it out, I think you guys would be the one. But how do you feel about, you know, getting away from like the distillate concept? How do you feel about some of the solventless carts that you do see? And does Heritage have a solventless cart program? And do you guys put stuff out as well?
Yeah, I think they're phenomenal. I think it's very, you know, once you start heating up live material and everything into that type of factor, and you're giving that pressure, there's a lot of off gassing with a lot of those live ones that just don't work at all within the vape cartridge. You might think it's the best shit in the world, and you try to go put it underneath that pressure, and it just tastes gross.
Yeah,
we're noticing that, you know, so it's very variable within the life on that side. But like what we've noticed too as well, like we could give you some like of our sour tangy and everything of those carts that are cured, and they are some of the best carts. And I know everybody says this, but they are some of the best carts you've ever had in your entire life. They have the true flavor, true stability. They're way lighter than HTE or any of the other stuff in that nature, but they're not like that clear like yellow that you would want to see like from everybody else that wants to be in the rosin game, you know. But you get that a little bit more of a color value, you know.
Yep.
Everybody knows.
But they're phenomenal. And the next time I see you guys, I will give you one of these, and you'll be like, "What in the hell is that?" And they're delicious. So
looking forward.
There's a stability that comes behind cured that really kind of helps out within the cart realm for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other side of carts, the other side of all of this is the hardware. Yeah. And that's really, you know, if you get the wrong fucking hardware and you're using stuff that's just cooking everything, and you know, guys learned quickly that like I would never buy a full gram cart of solventless, because by the time you get down in that cart toward the end, it doesn't taste the same. So half grams are the best way. Like we figured all these things out through the years, that a solventless serving is a half gram and it's in this certain hardware. Yeah. And it's the same as like, you know, when we purchase these crazy rigs because they're airflow and how that's, you know, scientific glass function. Then we purchase a specific banger because it has a certain amount of surface area. And then we let it time to a certain amount of time because we know that that's where we want to boil. And then we go and put a cap on that motherfucker to raise temp back up and figure. And I always say this shit, but when it comes to, you know, all of these steps, all these things that are a part of it, when you take a vapor pen and you make the best fucking solventless shit ever, you got the best input, and you put it in the wrong fucking pen and it overheats and it's cooking, and you're like, is there a fire around here somewhere? It's like, you just get to this fucking place where it just ruins it. And that's where that's a big picture to look at, because you got to find the right hardware. And then you want to talk about sketch? Let's talk about fucking hardware companies. Those dudes were like, the sketchiest motherfuckers you ever meet. And not to offend anybody, but
you can lose your shipment. You know,
well, it's not to offend anybody, but it's their production is not done here. So there's a lot of fucking uncontrollable components that are there that in my eyes makes me be like, well, this dude's being sketchy because now my order's late and now my shit costs more, and now fucking, you know, they're like, oh, shipping prices are triple from fucking China now. So our, you know, it's like, so it's just sketchy as fuck. So it breaks my heart whenever I see people make really great material and then it's in the wrong you know, the wrong thing. But I think with like Eye Crusher and these new ones that are out there that are, you know, some proprietary ones that are out there, it's making a big difference. But we need these hardware guys to really focus on the temperatures and other stuff. And that's why I always promote.
There's one that we're using that it's an all glass. They're all glass. There's no filament in the middle of it. The filament's down below. And so it's never getting heat on the whole entire product there. So you actually can have a graham cart without it tasting like shit because you don't have a heating element in the middle of the sauce making it nasty. So everything that's coming down into it's falling from the top. What's that?
I think the bigger issue is what the mass ohm output is.
Yeah.
You know, these guys that are going 3.1 fucking 2.6s. Like my favorite one is like a 1.8 to a 2.4 and it oscillates back and forth. And that's by AVD. They make a haptic one that you can use like heats it up to like 2.4 and then bumps it back down to 1.6 or 1.4. And it kind of just jumps in between. My biggest issue is that it's overheating shit for too long.
Yeah.
And then it creates this fucking, you know, it fucks it all up. That's what fucks up the rest of the material in the vessel is that it overheats for too long. So even if it's a glass tube and nothing touches it, what's the max temperature? Yeah. And how quickly does it back off that temperature? And how quickly does it go back up to that temperature? Because if it just hits that temperature,
some people like to rip big clouds, and some people like to do flavor. You know what I mean? I'm a low temp type of guy. I go in fucking cold start every time. People usually like, you know, bring in their temperature. I think the same way it goes for a lot of people. They like to rip on their vape cartridge, and they like to have big fat clouds, or they like to just have little ones where they taste good. You know,
well, so people can take proper dabs or improper dabs. It's up to them.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like you don't like when you send a fucking rocket into space, there's one fucking way to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, you gotta jet propulsion.
Well,
you have
to have one material, and that's gas, bro. That's fucking gas.
You need fucking jet fuel to do that shit.
Yeah.
That's that's big boy shit. But my point is, the analogy I'm trying to use is like, and I'm kind of being a dick, I guess, but I don't think anything will ever be better. Jameson says the same thing. I don't think anything is ever gonna fucking outdo the right rig with the right nail, with the right time and the right fucking cap. Nothing's ever gonna touch that. You can never come to me with any of that shit. I mean, I've seen a million things and I love it all. Everything outside of that is just convenience. If I want to bake a fucking cake, I got to do it in an oven. I can't put it in the sun and pray to Jesus and hope that fucking, I'm going to build an, it's like, no, dude, you make a pizza in a fucking brick oven. You cook a fucking, you know what I mean? There's a certain way to do shit.
It's an unarguable point. You put enough heads in a room and you put 100 heads in a room, there's going to be like 95 torches in that room. So the thing is like, what's your 10 out of 10, right? Like there are people who drink beer and they're like, bro, I love Bud Light. I'm going to drink Bud Light. I'm going to drink Busch till I die. And they're like, they're like, what? You don't want this like banana, orange juice, pineapple smoothie? And they're like, no, I want a Busch. And everybody's different, but all the beer drinkers who love beer will get to a point and they all go, dude, there's only one way to drink beer. And these are the really good beers. And we kind of shit on that. And so we just have to understand that, like, I know Quartz isn't going anywhere because I've looked everywhere. And there's no way, and you have too, Addy, and so but there has to do with how people grew up and the flavors that they were absorbing during like really key and important points in their life. Like I find I will meet people who are very, very tied to like the earthy aspects of traditional hashish.
Yeah, like the sandalwoody, that type of flavor.
I personally remember experiencing many times in my youth, but by no means am tied to the point where I'm reaching for that over some live rosin. So but I mean everybody's different. But I think that going forward, we're going to continually see like a rise in extract consumption. Yeah. And at first I was like, and up until very recently, I was like, we need to like bring down the walls between solvents and solventless. But in reality, like it pays to have a back and forth. There's always East Coast, West Coast. There's always, it is what it is. But building up the extracts community, my goal over my lifetime is just to make sure that we're not all smoking pens. And I think that a lot of people will end up going to like, you know, the new Proxy. You can basically like that's
Those are dope.
well, like that's for people who don't want torches. It's like you can put that into a rig, and you can then now you don't have to worry about a torch. Maybe you live with your girl, and your girl says you can't have a torch. I don't know.
Well, I smoke differently. I'm a split smoker, man. Like,
and that's just because you came up. Everybody comes up differently.
Like, I fucking smoke hash in spliffs all the time. That's how I smoke. I'm not really a big rigger. Like I fucking love like what I'm rolling now. I roll snakes. Roll some spliff. I'm like super highly Euro, and you got a lot of people that are Euro on their hash too as well.
So so when you say spliff, you put tobacco in it?
Yep.
Do people give you shit because now you're putting tobacco?
No, because I can smoke by my fucking self, and I can smoke my own spliff. You know what I mean?
But
That's
then
what it is,
I would argue someone that smokes tobacco is not going to have the greatest palate when it comes to tasting other terpenes.
I would definitely highly disagree. And something is that like when I smoke regular just straight weed in a joint, I think it tastes horrible. I'm like, dude, this shit tastes like gross. And then I throw a little bit of tobacco in there, blend it up in there, and I throw a little bit and a little bit of hash in there. There's something about it, and there's a lot. Like there's millions and millions of people like me.
Did you ever smoke cigarettes?
What's that? Yeah, I do.
You did. You smoke cigarettes now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's like, of course, millions of people, largely Europeans, that are searching for cannabis cultivars, varietals, and terpene profiles that interact with the cannabis or with the nicotine, with the tobacco. I smoked for many years. I don't smoke anymore, and I can tell you, like, the palate changes drastically. So I think that there's a bit of like, well, you're looking.
Food will taste better, and I mean they've said that for a long time. You know.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, everybody to each their own. Absolutely.
For sure. I think there's experience with hash in general. That's the cool part about it is there's a lot of factors of like how it really should be enjoyed. A lot of people, just really with people within like the rosins, a lot of people, aren't really a rosin head, but they're a hash head, and, there's a lot of people that are it's just the way that it is. And I don't know what it is. And I wish I could explain it, but it's like, every time I roll a spliff or anything like that, man, it's just, it's top notch. And plus I love dabs. Remind you, like, man, all my sweaters from when I was a younger kid have burn marks in the front of my hoodies because I was taking knife hits off the fucking stove for so many years that, that's how I was like smoking hash, like continuously. I'm waiting for someone to bring back the battery operated coil.
Where is the Puffco hot knife?
Where's that?
You know what I mean?
Don't be giving on there. Fucking... Got battery operated. Pull it off. You got your hot nail. You're good to go.
Where's the Carta hot knife? Let's go.
Listen, I will explain something to everyone right now. Every fucking car has a hot knife in it.
It's
it does. It's called the lighter. You plug it the fuck in, you drop your hash on it, and you do a hot knife in your car. It's not going away, guys. You can literally go online and buy like 20 of those little things that plug into your lighter. So when you destroy the one that you have, you throw it away and plug a brand new one in. Hot knives in the car
a cleaner way.
all day long.
There's a cleaner way.
Amazon right now, put in the type of fucking car that you have, put in the fucking lighter thing, and it'll pop up from a thing in China that's like, here's a pack of 10. And you're like, I'll take all 10 of those motherfuckers. And then now you're just doing hot knives in your car.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I miss those hot knife days. Like I used to have make the best contraptions in the world for that.
With the ice in the fucking 2 liter, and you'd be like,
when you cut the bottom off and you rotate it, you staple it together and you put the tape on it. It's the best.
Dude, my friends I knew all these wakeboarders that lived up in Sacramento, and they were all pot growers and they make hash and do shit. And they had this gang called RFB for right front burner. And it was like the coil of the logo was like the coil of the thing, and there was 2 knives behind it. It was the greatest crew ever. Like there were these crazy ass dudes. Shout out to the fucking RFB crew in Sacramento.
Yeah.
If you guys are
Let's bring it back, dude. We need
Joel
to have
those crazy
best knife hit competition. See, back then though, you didn't wait for your knives to cool down. If they weren't red hot, dude, then they weren't hot enough.
Hey, Jameson, you know what we should do at Legends? We should have a hot knife station where you can fucking come up and just blast out with some hot knives. I'm doing it. I'm announcing it right now.
Let's do it.
I'm announcing it here right now.
See if there was just some temperature controlled, make some nice little paddles, back in the day.
Remember the
no.
glass? Like I know glass makers started making like glass paddles, and then you could
I had them.
fucking
I had
smash.
glass paddles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got a trumpet still. So you want to hear a funny thing about knife hits is that my folks, like before I left my house and moved to Alaska, I took this pair of my mom's nice stainless steel knives, and they ended up finding them in my room that they're burned on top. And still to this day, when I go eat dinner at their house, for some reason it's at my plate stating, and I sit down and there's those knives, that one knife with the burnt top that they've resurrected and kept. And I mean, and it still comes up in the story of like, why is this knife burnt? You must have been doing some crazy art projects and blah blah blah. I'm like, Mom, you didn't know? Like, we had a stove in our garage when we were growing up, so we were able to hang out and fucking do that because big Mormon families had to cook 2 turkeys, so. That was that's really why there was a stove in the garage. So,
oh fuck yeah,
it worked out well for me.
Yeah, hot knives are definitely a rite of passage. When I meet like some of these kids never took a fucking hot knife and it shows. You know what I'm saying? Like they never burnt their favorite shirt or killed their friend. Like you think taking a hot dab will fuck you up? And this is what we used to do. Me and my stupid ass friends, we would take a hot knife and then we'd have a skateboard there and we would see who could do the highest ollie and hold the fucking hit.
Yeah.
And it was like a thing. We would just pass out. You'd be like, and then you'd fucking crumble and just knock yourself out.
Oh yeah.
And because we were so stupid that
when
was
you would
like
drop the hash onto the knife, sometimes it would boil off and run right off.
Slide off onto your leg.
Well, one time I went down and I grabbed a piece that I thought was hash off the floor, and it was fucking bacon. And I gave it my friend the hit real hard, and he's all, that's bacon. It was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
I had a buddy in my kitchen drop the fucking dab and then go down. And when he did, one of the knives touched the linoleum. And then when he came up to do it, it was like a linoleum fucking hot knife with hash on it. And then dude, his eyes were fucking like chemical red. Like he did something to himself, and he might be dead now. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you usually hit that. You usually hit that like 2-liter bottle sometimes. You know, you catch that little.
Oh, I've done that too.
Whoa,
it was dangerous, bro. Shit was so, and that's why now when people are like, "You have a blowtorch," I'm like, "Motherfucker, we used to." There'd be like 8 of us in the kitchen around the fucking stove.
Yeah.
Someone would fucking do their knife and it would slide off, and you get like a hot dab on your toe or something. Like, dude, it was dangerous. Now it's like
you were using the same knife that you were using to burn the holes into that piece of plastic you were gonna suck out of to use the knives for the hash. You know, delicious.
I'm shocked that we're even still alive at this fucking point. These kids now, they're like, oh my Puffco or oh my this, and you're like, that's not taking a fucking dab, dude. That's like using Visine in one eye. That's not even a fucking. That's not even like the real deal. You got to fucking go all the way in, and you should have to take hot knives to start. That should be the fucking rule. And then once you we should have a camp that you go to, and you
hot
enroll.
Knife camp?
No, it's a hash camp.
Yeah, like
when you get there, you start with hot knives the first day, and then you move into fucking.
Then you have to use the dome that has the little fold over little
fucking bell. All of it. You got to go all the way through. You got to do hot dabs on
the titanium now.
Yep. And then when you leave, you get a certificate. Like the Gangiers should do this.
The Gangiers should do this.
We should make the Hashiers, and it's a different thing. Or we should incorporate this because then someone could be like, "Hey, man, that's like the dude who's like, I went to Oaksterdam." You could be like, "I went through fucking Jameson's hash fucking Navy SEAL."
Why don't we do
buds? It's like
why don't we do like
the
journey? Why don't we do like the journey through dabbing at Legends of Hash? And you got to walk in, and you can take the tour like where you take a knife hit of this, and then you go through, and then you have to take like the dome over. Then you take the titanium now. Then you move over. Then you're finally at the mothership glass, and you're like, wow, we came this far. I don't want to be a part of
it because that's like. First of all, I'm not doing any of that because I'm going to smoke all the fire hash, and I don't want to hurt my instruments.
Yeah. That's the thing. You're going to be doing like 180 fucking dabs in 2 days. So you really got to. That's what people don't understand about
2 days now.
Yeah, it's
2 days
dope.
now.
2 days.
2 days.
And we get
don't
eggs.
Forget that.
Which is.
It's great.
Poached eggs and hash? Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like,
sounds pretty good to me.
It's going to be epic.
That's on my birthday, right?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So was Legends last time like did everybody show up with rigs or just a few people or did you have
everybody showed up with their rig?
Everyone had rigs. It was like you had a seat, you came in, and we instructed everybody too, like bring your setup, bring some cash because Mothership's going to be there. Bring this. We kind of gave everyone the update on like what they needed to do. So it was round tables, bunch of them put together, and everyone just came in, picked a spot, sat down, went up, got their kit, and then just hung out in that spot all night and kind of did their thing. So it was fucking nuts too, because you couldn't really see anything. It was kind of dark. We wanted it to be like, because the original Legends of Hash that you'd go to would be like down in this restaurant, and it wasn't really well lit kind of. And so this year we're kind of bringing a lot more. It'll be brighter. You'll have your phone. There'll be all these kind of things you'll feel a little less like a canary in the mines in a sense. Hopefully,
I'm very excited.
It'll be bigger. It's set up this year so that there's a whole back wall that will be like standing tables, so people can kind of congregate in there and do shit and dab at those places. Then there's an outside that will have, covered outside for eating and for dabbing and shit. So it's a much bigger space. Shout out to the guys at Vortex and 91 Club. It's their space that they have, and it's beautiful fucking spot. And there's what's cool about it too is there's a lot of events there now. So we're seeing like a lot of people put on some of the stuff. I've been trying to get over there one of these weekends. I've just been so fucking busy. I want to go over there and hit up one of the events and kind of see how they jam out. But it's a great space, man. They have such a beautiful space. So it's going to be a lot bigger. And we're, there'll be, I think, 40 makers for this one.
Nice.
So it'll be 15 more, all the original 25 from last year, and then 15 more makers. And that will be a much bigger. And then, now you guys can enter up to 3 things. And there's no extra charge to enter more things. So you can enter 3 different categories.
How does the judging work over the 2 days?
So you'll get, it's going to be on your phone, and it's essentially like a Google survey, and you get in there and it's going to populate everything into a spreadsheet for us so we can see in real time what it is. One of the biggest issues when you do this is that like, you then you're fucking roasted off your ass. And now you got to be like, let's do math. And
Frozen.
People are writing shit and doing things. So that's why this way with Google survey on your phone, you go in, you fucking just answer all the questions, put all your shit in. And then that way we're able to get the data more quickly and do that stuff. So
there we are.
He's back.
There we go.
Yeah, the phones are good. The phones, as somebody who had to do some data input on the day of it's not fun.
We're too roasted, man. It's not good. You're gonna make mistakes anyway, but that just sets you up for fucking. You don't want to do hash math when you're super high, because then it's gonna be wrong math. It's gonna be a little.
I double checked the melting of the head stuff in Excel, and it was all right, thankfully. So
that's good. Big shout out. Yeah. So we'll have that. That'll be different. We'll add that to it. It's a much bigger event, but. For Kyle, like, what was your experience with Legends? Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I think it was good. I didn't really get the smoking of the more hash type of ordeal was kind of like how it was done, which was kind of like the throw off from that. But, I think if I wanted to touch base on that, I think it was a phenomenal event. I think a little bit more of a meet and greet within the hash makers, letting people introduce themselves, tell them what people do. I'm really starting to get people that aren't really being formal, because we all have our clique. You know what I mean? Like we all hang out with everybody. We got our little shit. We sit back. Hey, Penske, what up? We have that. But really getting people to explain why they're there, and really kind of getting, in touch with that, just kind of introduce themselves, So that's one thing that I would do. Definitely like the more point scoring on the kind of the hash. I like the 1 through 5 type of ordeal, ordeal, the fucking. Was it on the flavor? Is it 1 through 5, and then look, taste, and then so everything. Once you get that point score towards the end of that, you got the most points.
We'll have that this year. That's what we added. We added that and that's why we brought back the original 25 people that are makers that were there. Yeah, because we want you guys to then be able to compete based on that new format and actually have judging. We'll still have the Legends Award, which will be. Based on the POS system, whatever runs out first will get that Legends Award. But then there's going to be first, second, and third for each of the categories based on a 1 through 10. And I think it's like 4 different points that we're looking at for 1 through 10. So a perfect score would be 40.
For sure. And that's how we did. We did a Taste of the Harvest one year, and we did that same way where everybody came up, they grabbed a score sheet. They went up to the jars even themselves and would pull the nuggets out of that jar themselves. And, by the end of it, after everybody smoked, they went back, we just added up all the numbers, and that's the person that won. And I've never seen more high school weed over like anything. When I woke up that morning, there was just piles of fucking weed all over the tables everywhere, and so many joints and everything. It was like crazy to see. Like usually that's like beers at an event or whatever.
After a party, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just weed piles, just like dank nuggets everywhere. And that night it was like super moist, and so all the weed was just ruined, So I think people left it there. So they woke up and it was just disgusting.
Like, nowadays, after events, it's like everyone's so roasted that you lose your caps, your pearls, and all your other shit because you leave them in these ISO soaks, and you're like halfway down the highway, and you're like, "Fuck, man, I left my marble, bro." And like, that's kind of the new one of that is that you're like, dude, I got back from this event. I got to show you a picture of it, Jameson. I have some fucking cap. I don't know where the fuck it came from, but it's like I think it's a Quave. For like a fucking, but yeah, I'll show it to you. But yeah, you just randomly now, you're like, what the fuck is this thing? Because you have an ISO thing.
You can have a little box.
Someone will put their shit in your ISO soak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a ground score from the show.
I'm missing a cancer marble. I snagged the last one of the cancers, the crab on the marble. So if you got one of those,
but I did. I'll send you a picture of it. You know what? Sure. The reason why I'm saying this to you is because I saw you taking a dab video. There was a video of you at the event. And it was the cap that you were using. So I think it like got over to the judges table somehow, and then it went into the ISO, and then it was like, and then I lost my fucking crank cap. But I think
it's a ship cap. It's a ship cap.
It's a Quave Charmer cap.
Oh, true. Well, that's we should post it up or whatever.
It's like a slurper cap, but it's a pink slurper cap. It's this weird looking little pink slurper cap, but.
Interesting.
Anyway, back to my questions about Legends. So, it's your birthday for this year.
Yeah.
So, are you gonna come down and celebrate your birthday down here, or what are you gonna do?
I would love to. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to, for sure.
We'll have to sing happy birthday to you all. So I'm gonna make sure that we have name tags because I want you to be able to meet everybody because that's a very good idea. And then we'll sing happy birthday to you at the event.
Thanks.
And then you'll have 150 people singing happy birthday to you.
That'd be pretty good.
That'd be awesome, man.
Phenomenal time. Yeah.
So are you?
Go ahead.
A quick question: are you coming out with or thinking about any sort of products that you could come up with that would help people smoke your hash more easily and efficiently? Anything like that? Are you guys? Because I know you're working on all this different stuff.
Yeah, the 3-hole pipes are really big. We like those to do because we love temple balls. We're just kind of big traditional on that level. I think the 3-hole pipe works really well for that. And so we have someone in house that does make that for that. So we're trying to give those along and try to boost that up so we can actually give those along with our temple ball purchases.
Cool.
So some piece that you could put on your bong or whatever. But yeah, we sell those like hotcakes at the shop for that reason.
Fuck yeah.
And then
that's always helpful, man. That's always super helpful.
Still using your glass rod and whatever, and I mean it's it goes in pretty nice. So we love that, and we're not really like product driven more than just working on our hash and our freaking brand right now. I think we'll get to that point here soon, hopefully. So it's just we launched the business during COVID and during a recession, so we're not new to this game. We've been around for a long freaking time. But definitely was like one of the hardest times in this world to like start a business, for sure.
Well, hard times make tough men.
They do.
Yeah.
The crazy part is that I'm a little soft bear, dude. I'm a crier, dude. I cry. I show my emotion like on every freaking which way. I tell people thank you more than I should. I indulge.
I saw you cry at the Emerald Cup.
Yeah, I do.
That's good though, bro. You gotta show your emotions.
Yeah, for sure. My sister just had passed at that point too. So it's a big deal because she was a big bridge for my family seeing the cannabis in the world, and then she was actually able to get RSO from me and from some of my friends to help her along the way. And my parents and family supported her 110%. And awesome. It really scared the shit out of my dad, but to have my dad tell me that that's helping, and to her saying that it was helping, it's a big deal. So
what was your sister's name and when did she pass?
Her name was Kristen. She passed this last May. She's like 7 years older than me. She died of cancer, and it was her second time battling cancer. She didn't want to do chemo anymore. When she was 17 in high school, she was in a car accident where she was in a coma for 3 months. And then she had to relearn how to walk and talk, everything, you name it, for 3 years of inpatient rehab. And then married a guy. He cheated on her, and then said that she left. And then she's still handicapped, mind you, and then got cancer, beat cancer, and then got cancer again. And she was just like, I'm done. So she prepared for the last year to die. And she's very religious, and she's very spiritual, and just the most innocent person you've ever met in your entire life. And to really see that, that she was taking in these things because she is a Mormon. She does believes highly in the word of God, and letting me give her these type of scenarios. And I'll tell you what, if there's one person that's going to heaven, it's one of those people that it's like her, you know what I mean? It's like, she was just super innocent, and the church was just packed. It was like lines around the block, and she passed away. And she tested a lot of people within her struggles of what she did with her life. And, my parents took care of her for 30 years, and then now they can actually take care of themselves. And it's a big deal. So it's more of a relief thing than it was a bad thing. So
yeah, sorry to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, man. I know that's sometimes there's I remember you speaking about it at Emerald Cup, but when you were getting emotional, I think it had more to do with how proud you were of your team.
Well,
because I saw you up there, and that's when you got emotional. You were like, oh, these guys, and it was like, and even the other farmers and the other guys. So and you know what, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that's the problem that most men have, is that they can't show emotion, and then it's all bottled up inside, and then you fucking start acting out, and then dudes are like, why is that guy so crazy? And it's like, oh, because you don't know that he has all this shit going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, what I love about being with my friends, we were up at Melting of the Heads, right? There's a group of us together. I've never seen dudes just fuck with each other more than what that group was doing, because it was just like every fuck, when you get a bunch of guys together and they're all there, and then it's like after a couple hours, everyone's picking on one person, or it just fucking starts shifting, and it's like this go for all, and everyone's going nuts. It's that sort of camaraderie is important, and men need that shit. And I think when it goes beyond that to bullying and other shit, people kind of close up and they don't want to talk about stuff. So it's like I'm way on mental health and doing the shit you need to do yourself personally to feel better about yourself. No negative talk. None of these things need to be in your head. We beat ourselves up so much. So I'm all about the emotional man. So I give you the high five on that.
Well, it wasn't just emotional for me. I mean, it was emotional for my team. Frank passed away that year. I mean, it was a big deal for Bell, and a lot of us working so hard. We were, we worked to win Emerald Cup. We did. We were you know what, we're gonna go in there, and we worked our asses off for a freaking year, and we really put ourselves to the bone, and we wanted those accolades, and we wanted to have some of the stuff that we were doing this to make this what our realm is and what we're doing in this legal market, we be fucking validated. And when we felt that, and when we were actually being able to be there with Belle and to have her be on my team, there's so much honor to have. Dude, that girl makes better hash than any boys out there, dude. And she is just super talented, but she is also behind the spread books. Her spreadsheets are just amazing. On a business level, she's taking it, way higher. And she's really, she structures those boys like crazy. And you have to have someone in there like this that's going to be able to help this big team win. And she's an amazing leader, more than you've ever seen, more than seen a lot of people. And to her see that win and to have her come down, she didn't really want to go down. She didn't want to be really known and to do the stuff with Emerald Cups. It wasn't her big thing. And then, to have her, dedicated to Frenchie and to do that type of thing, it was fucking huge, man. And to have her put her fist up at the very end and be like, this is for Frenchie and Heritage Hashco. I lost it. I was just dude, girl, that's that was the shit. It's one of the best.
Girls do make better hash than guys. I got to admit, there's something about
they do.
Just the gentleness of it or something that's because look at Papa's.
Yeah.
What's her name? Wook Sauce's girl
Alice.
in there. Alice is amazing at making hash. There's all these women that are really good at making hash. And that's why last year on the Legends poster, we wanted to have a woman on the poster. We were all right, we got to kick it back to the ladies on it a little bit, because 9 out of 10 times, man, usually if a girl walks up and hands you a gram of hash, it's better than when a guy walks up and hands you a gram of hash. It's already, you know, like, and the quality of it's always been fucking better. So I definitely can agree with you. Like, and she makes amazing stuff, man. I've had some of her stuff just from that friends have had for a while. That's kind of cured and gotten to taste like her temple balls and her other stuff is just such a different experience. Like in a dry pipe, you know, something like that. They're so fucking good, and it's a different high.
Yeah,
like you're more munchies. You want to eat some food, like it's cool. So yeah, it's like a high school high.
Speaking of women, it's my anniversary today, and my wife that keeps looking at me like
she's like, let's go. You got to go take her out.
Let's spend the next few minutes wrapping up whatever we need to do. But and I would love to sit here for another 3 hours and talk to you guys about holy shit, you know.
Well, usually we wrap it up like talking about the market and the overall view, which I think we already touched on, and then you know, we ask what you've got, what you're working on, and your projects. But I mean, between the new equipment company, the new transport storage system that Addison is very interested in, and you know, Heritage Hash, I really think you've got your hands full. But yeah, like anything else that you're working on or any shameless plugs, like, you know, stage is yours.
I think that, you know, we've got a couple other eyeing things that we want to be doing down in LA. We might be trying to put together some sort of like reality hash TV show that might be kind of coming up with what's going on. I've got a place that's really close that we might be calling the Hashery. It's right across like where the Wisdom is, down in that, like the art space. So we're really trying, if it works out, it'll work out, but we're really trying to get within the partners to really pull the trigger. But yeah, we kind of like more like a live, you know, like reality life of a hash maker, you know what I mean? And so we're kind of doing that in itself, but also at the same time too, we're really refining what we are as Heritage Hash Co right now. And we're really trying to, you know, we're trying to be leaning forward, and we're also trying to survive too as well. So we will stick around and we'll survive because we can run thin. But, you know, that's what our motto is right now, is to make dank hash, really be picky with the people that we're working with this next year. Be uber picky and come out swinging again, win Emerald Cup again, maybe win Legends again. You know, like we would like to keep doing this type of thing. You know, we really those accolades are nice. So,
Oh, Kyle, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. If people want to get at you, where's the best place to reach you?
Well, you can go to Heritage Mendocino on Instagram. It's just Heritage Mendocino. And then our hash page got deleted. So we have our new one up. It's called heritagehash.co. We might get the other one back up, but just go follow heritagehash.co or Heritage Mendocino. And then my farms, Bon Vivant Farms. That's, you know, Bon Vivant Farms. And all on Instagram. And then those links will help you bring over to any of our menus. And if you need bulk menu or any bulk hash or any bulk anything like that, and you're a licensed motherfucker, you can get at me in my email. My email is up on our page too as well. So
awesome, Kyle. I appreciate you taking the time, man.
I appreciate your anniversary. This is a fun time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you. Good seeing you, boys.
Cheers, everyone.